show being modest. Now it's grams to the wax for my conscience. Bron James in LA, you're on college. I've been jumping on them planes like a hobby. Still moving with the pack like my partners. Put the John on them jets cause we wildin'. But the bowl is a party on the island. Moment of silence. So good, get back to the topic. Grew up, it was me and Flocka. Grandma's and Big T, that's my mama. I ain't even for the pain when my pops flipped. Knew his name, that's it, never bothered. Mom said, you the man, son, you got this. Ever since I found a way to go and pop shit. Hold up, blaze through a whole zip. Took a seat at the table of my first flip. Days in red roof for my first whip. Spent the money with the gang, never post pics. Seen a change in the game, had to coach it. Never let them take my wangs in the mold, bitch. Ever made in a month, nigga. Just serve him at the minute, just the front, nigga. Goddamn. Had to grow up quick, I made my own rules. Had my first child, got there jumping with me.
To be honest, that's kind of a good thing because it sort of I don't know how do I say this. It gives you like the a new look. Welcome everybody to a very special edition of Hot Program. It's our first Halloween weekend edition, and as y'all can tell, we've gone through maximum effort. We've got costumes, candy. You can see we've just overdone ourselves here with our pictures and all of our stuff. Oh yeah, my one black friend. That's what happened. You were looking at essentially a stream through the Gather. Yeah. That's not a big deal. All right, so man, it's I'm glad everybody's here, and let me do the intro. As always, folks, it's your boy Pocket Locker 86, and thanks to this beautiful homemade bong by Hippie Smiles. As always, I am in airplane mode. I can't tell you how much better airplane mode feels when you're using paraphernalia made by one of your fans. Thanks again to Hippie Smiles. Set up your Etsy store so we can send you our money. And I am joined by a man who puts the pass, I'm going to say hard pass, in Passover. A man who needs no introduction. How you doing today, my one black friend?
I'm well, and yourself?
I'm doing good, man. And that was a perfect intro because we are literally going to be talking about putting the pass in Passover. I thought, given that it's Halloween, we should be topical. We should not seem like we're above the fray of trying to, glam on to the thematics of the Halloween, But on top of that, I think there's been a number of things happening in our community that, for me, feel like a personal shift or a step forward, but definitely a change. And then, there's been some things going on in our community. So let me touch on those real quick. So one, shout out to Melody Joy. Melody Joy, we've been having conversations about talking to family, sort of coming out with your atheism, for lack of a better way to put it, and what some of the difficulties with that are. But also, we've been sort of identifying that we're good at this. And we're strong enough to do this, and some of us even feel maybe a certain obligation to do that. So Melody Joy recently sent out the pipe bomb email to the family, speaking her mind on some of these issues. It's definitely something we're headed towards with the holiday season, right? Yeah. And then it's something that's been coming up because particularly James Apperson and I have been dealing, we're out here a lot. We've been dealing with a number of these viewers, people who are quote unquote fans that watch us, but are very antagonistic, right? And throughout this week and the last couple of weeks, a lot of them have been quite antagonistic to me on James's channel or to James or to myself on our channels. and they've really brought up this issue of how friendly ought we to be to the other side. How welcoming, theist forward, building bridges of love and understanding should we be versus, hang on a sec, we're actually out here for ourselves. We're actually out here for each other. We're not necessarily here to serve others in some cases, right? Because we have our own needs that we're trying to get addressed out here. And I thought that this was a great place to have it. One, because I'm almost certain you and I will disagree on some of this in a loving way, right? And I think this is the place for me to express some of my thoughts and feelings and changes, because I've been trying to tell people in my own life, this is the more theist forward, welcoming space. So if I put my shows and my vibes throughout the week sort of on a spectrum, most of my stuff is Jay Bundy focused and I don't give a crap is the tone, whereas Hot Program is something that you and I talked about being friendly, being opening, maybe explicitly being a place where we're going to go the extra mile to be friendly and welcoming to the other side. So if I'm going to express a shift in how I want to approach my content elsewhere, I think this is a good place to do it. So I want to jump into that and get
Sure.
just your overall thoughts, but I'll tie it up by saying
this is a great topic for TikTok Shorts. YouTube Shorts. This is a fantastic topic for that.
Yeah, and what I titled our stream was "Be Not Afraid," right? With the theme being "Be Not Afraid," because it's Halloween, but it's kind of like, it's the season maybe to look under the bed or open the closet and see what's in there, and your thoughts as people go into the big holiday season coming up right after this.
Well, then we won't be talking about how the zombies rise from the dead in Matthew and go into the town, which is a great topic for maybe next Halloween. The spooky stuff in the Bible.
We could touch on that too. I was thinking about touching on spooky stuff in the Bible. We could.
It would be one amongst many potential great topics, but I think this is probably the better topic, and it was to be the focus of my channel.
Oh, okay,
so,
sure.
I'm happy to talk about this. So I think most of us probably come from a background that had Christianity in it. So let's view Christianity as a language, and it's one we know. Maybe not our first language, but it's one we know and understand.
Right.
If you are talking with a Christian person and they're going to become belligerent, or you just don't know how they'll react, you know what you should be able to expect from them if they can live up to that philosophy. I will quote Gary Habermas again. He's a Christian apologist. If you don't know, he said, "Not every man can live up to his own philosophy. No, it is difficult for a man to live up to his own philosophy." Bravo, Mr. Habermas. Bravo. That's true. So when you're talking to your family members, you have to keep that in mind, because as Christians, they are commanded to be loving, caring, tolerant, and understanding of others. But in that moment of you saying to them, "Hey, remember that thing you invested a lot of time and energy in getting me to believe, aka your faith? Well, I don't anymore. But I don't want." And actually, let me go back. I had this friend in high school. She went by MF because of me. Those are her initials. I said to her in this class that we had, we all were giving this life skills class. I referred to it before. We had to write what we would tell someone who crashed our car. And hers stuck out because she began hers with, "I hope you are okay," or "I'm glad you're okay." I forget exactly what she used. But I thought that was excellent, because the car is a machine. It's secondary. You can replace it. The individual, you cannot replace. So if you would like to begin with something of that nature, right now the words are escaping me of what that could be or should be. But the idea is to preserve the friendship, the relationship, and not to say I got one over on you because what you believe is it's untrue, it's ridiculous, it's got all these flaws, it's immoral, whatever.
Right.
That is only, I would say, volunteer that. If they ask you why you don't, be honest with them. When I did this with my brother, I have a brother who's like Captain Christian. He's awesome, donates a lot of his income to other people, helps out with causes, volunteers, all that good stuff. He was the only person I was afraid to tell. My mom, I figured we don't talk that much anyway, so she'll get over it.
Right.
But him, oof, that was hard.
Telling your brother?
And my brother, yeah. Luckily, he serves it up to me really easily. He would ask over the years, "How's your walk with the Lord?" And when I had become an atheist, I said, "I don't believe in God anymore." And I went into why. And I was clear as saying, when I read the Old Testament, some of the atrocities that are ordered by God in there, I can't love someone who behaves that way.
Right.
And he said, I don't believe in everything the Bible says either. As far as the decisions, he doesn't support all those decisions, but ultimately he loves the God of the Bible.
Right.
Well, his mind is capable of holding both those positions at the same time.
Right. Absolutely.
About a being that is supposed to be supremely good, but clearly is not supremely good. Again, you mentioned Tuck's so bad it's good, or so evil it's good. How did you
Bible?
phrase it?
It's an evil so evil everyone thinks that it's good.
Exactly. So, his interpretation, his processing of what he reads in the Bible, and he has read the Bible, is different than mine, where I view it analytically. He views it more, it's to edify him and strengthen his faith. And me, I'm the guy with the toolkit taking it apart. What do scholars say about this? What's the Hebrew say? What's the Greek say? What's the real meaning of this? Oh, an angel can be a person, like a regular guy or gal that's just a messenger. Right. Oh, an angel could be a star in heaven. Oh, so it doesn't always mean the same thing. Oh, and the translators play with it to make you think it's a heavenly being when it may not be at all. They know it and you don't.
Right.
That sort of thing. So there's all this, let's say for the average one of us who doesn't believe, I would say volunteer as little information as you can so that the conversation is a shorter one rather than a longer one. What you may discover, as I have numerous times, that you are surrounded by atheists. And they are people you thought were religious, some of them. And they just have been waiting, many of them, to tell someone else to breathe out and be in the company of a like-minded individual. I don't necessarily believe everything in the Bible either. I don't know if you can still hear me, Pocket Locker. Maybe you can. He has turned his back on me, ladies and gentlemen. If you are one of the listeners listening on the and not watching, he has turned his back. He's now turned around again.
Yeah, I can hear you. I just needed to plug that light in and my headphones came unplugged.
Okay. So that's my take on it. I hope things worked out well for Melody. And I do wonder, hopefully she joins us today. I do wonder how many people she learned were in fact also atheists and just didn't know a way to tell her because they thought she's so sweet and so wonderful and that she'd think badly of them.
My feeling is, my understanding is I think she's still early in the process. I think it's been email response and maybe she's getting ready to email back. I don't know if the word's gotten out or yet. So I don't know. We'll see. Also, AR filled us in and gathered here. On August 24, 2021, Kanye West applied to have his legal name changed from Kanye Omari West to Ye with no middle or last name. He cited, quote, personal reasons for the change. The request was granted on October 18th. West had alluded to wishing to change his name since 2018 and had used Ye as a nickname for several years prior. In a June 2018 interview, he explained, "I believe Ye is the most commonly word used in the Bible." In the Bible, it means you.
Not in Hebrew, no.
So I'm you, us.
Then it would be ye.
Us.
It would be ye, not
went
yay.
From being Kanye, which means the only one, to just Ye. AR, thanks for the information. My one black friend, you need to rant. I'm gonna go fucking throw up my fucking dinner.
Okay, well, I'll say to ye, pronounced yay by some, genius move. And far from your only one. I thought that might be a move like Prince did, where he changed his name to the symbol. And no, just not to get out of a contract with Warner Brothers at all. He got out of the one with Adidas, though. And they should not have let him out. And they should have explained, well, if we give up his contract, it'll give him what he wants. And do you really want to give a racist person what they want?
No, but really, that got actually painful to read. It got actually painful to read when I started to realize what I was reading. It's just so in Kanye, man. This guy. What do you mean they shouldn't have let him out his contract? Man, I'd have let him out his contract. He's a liability to your business. What are you talking about?
No, see, here's the thing. It shows if people, I guess, if they're disgusted by him, I think they'd be even more disgusted to know that's exactly what he wanted. And then they gave it to him. If I'm Adidas and I have an Adidas story, I would make it publicly known. We know this is exactly what he wants. But you could do this. You can do what restaurant managers do when they're trying to tell you to go get a job somewhere else. They give you fewer shifts, shorter hours. You don't make as much money. You can't continue to work in that environment. You go somewhere else. So, contractually do the minimum for Kanye.
Do you find it hard to trust the Bible?
Yes.
That's funny. No, Melody sent me a link. I'm going to play it, but we'll get back to that. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So my Adidas story. 1,000 years ago, I used to work at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Great company to work for if you need a job, especially if you're a college graduate. Great company. So I went to work for them, and I would deliver cars to different people and also pick them up and pick people up to get them a rental car. I was told, take this car, you're delivering it to somebody at Adidas. Okay, so I drive over there with the car, and they're having a meeting. I was told to go right in. I'm like, what? There's like, if I remember right, there must have been 22 people in there. So they're having this meeting, and it was for the guy that ran Adidas. In that floor of the building, there are all these beautifully built Harley Davidson bikes around. And the guy calls me over to him, and he signs for the car. And he says, what size shoe do you wear? And I was like, oh, it's 13.5. He goes, make sure he leaves here with some shoes. And I was like, what? So I got free shoes from the good people at Adidas. Thanks, Mr. President. Just for doing my job. And that always left a good impression with me. And over the years, let me tell you what the benefit of that. So I think he gave me 2 pair of shoes for free. Over the years, I must have purchased 20 more pairs since that day of Adidas, whether they were for myself or for someone else. So that was a good piece of humanity and marketing. But anyway, I still would have let Kanye out his contract. I would have done the contractual minimum because that ties his hands. He can't go out and do what he wants. And I would have explained that to people. Like, look, we're going to do what we're obligated to do. But maybe he could sue them because they didn't do more. I don't know. They have lawyers that are smarter about that than me. But I think it's just a shame. But whatever. What we see in this country, in this world, is that those people who spew hatred end up creating the world that they claimed existed all along when it really didn't. And all they can do is be mad about it. I think we're going to start seeing that more and more. Charlie Kirk did a video recently that I saw part of on Cult of Dusty, and he's clearly disgusted by what he's reading, but he helped create it. And I think you're going to see that more and more, just like we see, I think for Christians, one thing that a person who's a quote unquote good Christian struggles with is when they see other people who call themselves Christian, but are incredibly hypocritical. That makes it hard for them. The ones that want to do right and be righteous, it makes it very hard for them. And yet, what do they do to sort of keep their own in check? Do they offer that gentle rebuke? Do they reach out with an email or a tweet that's just to that person, like the Bible says? Just go right directly to that person. And if they don't want to listen to you, go with them. Huh?
I'm going to close the window. Go ahead. I can hear you.
Are you going to open a door?
Nope. It's cold.
Okay. All right. Just wondering. Just, that's what God would do if he was doing it. So yeah, you have that, or they have that issue. They're supposed to all be held to the same standard, which is not the way it is. But that's Habermas, as I began with. It's difficult for a man to live up to his own philosophy.
Yeah, so definitely I mean, I agree with that. And to kind of, bring it back to this whole thing of, I feel this kind of interesting tension where I'm finding less and less reason to not, come out with my feelings about Christianity. On one hand, this thing that keeps happening in the community is that we have certain viewers, Otangelo, Lupin, Stephanie Trenton over on James's channel, Blessed Be He, Rebel Naz, there's a list. And even Robert Beatty, there are people who are quote unquote fans or watchers or whatever. Some of them hate watchers. And Richard Madsen, I think, comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
They're not here to be our friends. They're just not. At the end of the day, they are antagonistic viewers. They are here to, at worst, at worst, they're like moles or something is how they see themselves. They're going into the enemy's camp and you're going to do the Lord's work or whatever, peddle their stuff. And at best, they're distractions. What do I mean by that? I want to talk about religion or politics, or I want to game. I want to do whatever I want to do. Richard Madsen wants to show up 3 times a week and do what? Turn every conversation to his understanding of space Jesus and how everybody else is reading the Bible wrong. Stephanie.
Wow, I need to talk to him.
You have. This is the guy we talked to him about it, but you need to talk to him
I'm
again.
just saying. He wrote to me so I can come on his stream and talk about this or that. And I've just been so busy.
Yeah, you do, because it's gotten irritating to the rest of us, to be quite frank, because we get it, but he seems not to, right? Like, it's just this thing where literally he thinks we're reading all the words in the Bible wrong, and it's about a Jesus from another planet and the whole deal, but there's no effort to get it published or have the conversation with, academics. He wants to go around on YouTube distracting and derailing conversations about religion because they're not about his version, And it's a distraction. It's not a any honest assessment of the situation would at least admit it's not what the content creators want. It may be genuinely how he feels, right? But at some point, what I'm getting at is people have a right to produce a show, and just because it's public, just because you can interact with the person, just because there's a live chat, it does not mean I have to engage with you, and it certainly does not mean I have to be willing to derail my show to go nowhere, to have a conversation that we already know isn't going to be productive, we already know we don't agree about, and it does just get annoying to us. And I find it infuriating. It would be as though, let me say this, my one black friend, it'd be as though you have a customer or someone you sell your product to, or even an employee who, yes, has a valid misunderstanding or something they genuinely don't get, but at the end of the day, they just insist on having the conversation every time you step into the office at 9 o'clock in the morning. And every single time they want to end the conversation, they want to end the conversation until you unfortunately have to go on your lunch break. And now they want to take up half your day, half your week with this same conversation. At some point, you're just going to say, thank you, but no thank you. There's another place to buy these widgets across the street. I'm just sorry. I know you're a really great person, but unfortunately, I don't think this is working out for you here. I wish you the best in all your future endeavors. Like, at some point, you're not. It is. And the thing that bothers me the most that I don't think our community is getting is that talking about giving people exactly what they want, that's exactly what they want. It is a tactic. And also they're in a sense predatory. What they're doing is they know that this stuff will not fly in bigger communities. They know if they even go to someone as big as Derek or something like that, it's just going to be ignored. There's too many people. The stream is too big. Derek does not care if his viewership goes from, 267 to 264. He doesn't care if his sub count goes from 20,192 to 20,187. So people like this just get ignored. They get no traction. They get nowhere. Also, they're trying to promote their channels. And what? Their channels are so small. What? They're not getting a lot of love from the algorithm. They're nowhere near monetization or advertising. And quite frankly, their positions and their stuff is so esoteric, it's the backwoods of the backwoods of the backwoods. So these are the people who are even, in some sense, in smaller niches than us, right? Because the big niche here is Christianity, right-wing nuttery. That's what's the rave in the algorithm, right? We're the weirdos that are in the much smaller by orders of magnitude community making content saying that's not true. Because most people who feel like us or think like us just don't bother, right? They've just moved on with their life. And so we're a really, really small community compared to even, say, Christians on YouTube, right? The Richard Madsons and the Otangelos of the world are the small, literally weirdo cult 1%ers who believe something so wild and, weaponized type of stuff. And so then they're literally trying to glam onto us. And they figured out, quite frankly, that they won't get the time of day in a bigger community. But when they come through the smaller channels, they will. Why? Because those streamers are much more concerned about their numbers. They notice if they go from 10 viewers to 8 viewers and they don't like that, and they want to seem nice, so they've got to seem welcoming. And they're not Pine Creek. They're not Matt Dillahunty, right? They don't have armies of Christians calling into their show. They don't have a lot of theists to interact with. So they're sort of desperate. And as annoying as the Otangelos and the Richard Madsons and all of these people are, they feel like they can't really excuse them from their community because then they're just creating an echo chamber. But at some point, it's like, it just isn't worth it to me. And at some point, I got to remind people, I am not here to make people feel better about their beliefs. I am here to undermine those beliefs. I'm here to get rid of those beliefs. And I'm not about tacticking. I'm not here to do sales. Let me tell you guys something. I did a sales job. Let me tell you something about that job. I was amazing at it. Really, I was really good at sales. Let me tell you something else. I work in politics. A lot of y'all know that. Close to Cory Booker. That's my guy, all of that. years of experience. I'm really amazing at it. I can knock on your door in any neighborhood into an entire family of people who don't even speak the same language as I do and walk out with all of their commitment to vote Booker. Now, I also have an amazing member, and I'm really, really good in bed. Not everything that I am great and talented at do I want to do on YouTube. Just because I'm wonderfully capable of something does not mean I have any interest at all in doing it. So yes, I recognize I could build bridges of love and understanding. I could be the nicest atheist in the room. I could be the sweetest, most effective counter-apologist who uses the most loving, highest knowledge of how to build bridges and make people care about. And I just don't want to. And I even want people to understand it's not motivated by them. It's motivated by me. Yeah, I'm sick of them behaving badly and I'm calling them out, but I'm using calling them out as an example to tell you guys something I want you to understand about me. I'm not here to help them. I am really antagonistic to their religion. This is why I think me and my one black friend will disagree about this, because I think he genuinely wants to like pal around with Christians and all be buddy-buddy. I don't. I want them to stop believing immediately. I want them to understand how angry their faith makes me. I want them to understand how hurt I am. I want them to understand how traumatized I am. I want them to understand that I am being attacked and I'm in the middle of a holy war that I didn't ask for, and I'm not going to be nice about it anymore. So that's how I feel.
That is exactly what they would say. That is exactly what they would say.
Cool. And I'm over that too, because that's what they do. They have figured out a long time ago to weaponize their response and then play the projection game where they point and I don't care anymore. Yeah, I'm going to sound like them. I'm going to spend a lot more time, and that's what this conversation is about. I'm going to spend a lot more time sounding exactly like them. Because the truth is, I probably feel closer to what they feel. This radical commitment that their worldview must go at all cost. That if you're an adult and you're a believer, I'm sorry, you're just lacking major shit as a functioning human being. And again, I'm not saying that's a truth, but that is my genuine feeling. And I can't even be honest anymore. I literally feel like when I take you get further with honey than you do with vinegar, it doesn't matter, because Christianity's gone way too far with me and it doesn't deserve honey anymore. And so I actually feel like I'm lying. I actually feel bad. Like, I literally feel like when I'm too nice to Christians and I try to be too reasonable to people, it makes me feel gross. Like I've just coerced someone. I've literally just degraded myself, pretended to be someone I'm not, and I feel dirty and like I want to take a shower. Go ahead, my one black friend.
All right, so I have some advice for you. And Melody Joy, you may want to choose a different tactic than what Pocket Locker is suggesting for himself, or what I'm about to suggest for Pocket Locker. I would say play back what you don't have to do it now, what you just told me. And when someone is trying to preach Christianity to you, that's exactly, you condense that down and that's what you tell them. When they understand that their very beliefs repulse you, and you can give, like I did with my brother, I told him specific things from the Old Testament that I just couldn't align myself with, and would not align myself with an individual who was capable of that sort of thinking or doing those sort of things or commanding them to be done. I think when you have that discussion, Pocket Locker, you need not just your feelings, but you need examples. And you can let that person know, along with your feelings, this is why what you believe is disgusting to me. And you can say something on the order, and the fact that adults buy into it is rather shocking to me. I know when I get into that type of discussion, I will ask very plainly, do donkeys talk? Well, no. Do bushes talk? No, they don't talk. Okay. Do people walk on water? No, but Jesus did. Do people who aren't doctors, just bring people back from the dead while breathing on them or whispering a prayer over them? Well, in Africa they do, but they don't on Main Street. They don't at the local hospital, Nashville General Hospital. That doesn't happen. Well, no, it doesn't. After a while, Pocket Locker, the person standing in front of you in such a conversation is forced to deal with the fact that their beliefs don't match up very well with the modern reality. Those ancient authors could choose to write whatever the heck they wanted to or were told to. That doesn't mean it was true. I was listening to a conversation Pine Creek had with someone the other day, and this Christian guy, was pushing the fact that people wouldn't die for a lie. Well, look, we only have pieces of paper that said somebody died. We don't know if they actually did. It may be written with all the fervor of a Tom Clancy novel, and none of it actually took place. Or it's based on true events, but barely. My favorite thing ever said about Jesus being a real person was from Christopher Hitchens, where he said the fakery of the story. I forget exactly what he said, but I think he said the fakery of the story is proof that there was a real guy.
Oh,
I don't know what that was for.
So
but I love
that was just something I want to show you. But you
want to? Okay.
Yeah, I want to show you something. But Christopher Hitchens kind of goes there, and again that's, I mean that's part of it. To me is that argument that I've got to make this claim to my friends and family that the best evidence I could give you for this is that they told so many lies. It seems they had to be covering up for something. I mean, that's the genuine, the best evidence for this being, somewhat of a even human-based narrative is that they told so many lies. There just must have been a dude, which I'm not 100% with Christopher Hitchens, because again, I think, the biblical, the Jesus scholars are having a different conversation, right? The Jesus scholars do include the Bethlehem, Nazareth thing in the conversation of things that needs to be considered, right? But they don't. No, I don't think anybody comes down on that as the definitive thing, right? Is somebody testing their mic?
Yeah, sorry.
I think that's James.
It's James Apperson. What's up, baby?
Yeah, James, I'm glad you're here. Now I can use the restroom.
All right. All right. Good, James.
Glad to be observed.
James, it's good. James,
I have some function in the world.
James is good too, because it's like I said, there's always that one guy in every group of friends that's way too nice, especially to your enemies. And when he steps away for a quick break, it allows me and you, James, to really kick him. James, we don't got any nice guy stuff to worry about. Go to the bathroom so we can murder some fools.
All right, I'm gonna take my phone with me so I can listen to what.
All right. Mute your mic and turn off your camera. And that's a good habit. And then turn them.
I don't know how to do.
I go to the bottom. They're at the bottom. There's a mic. There's a camera. You pop them. They go from green to red. And then when you come back, you hit them again. Just like a Zoom meeting. Yep, mute's good. That's good. You're good. At least you muted. That's fine. All right. So, James, we're talking about basically just not being afraid to come out. I like what you said the other day. You miss fighting. Sometimes you miss beating up fools. You're a big guy, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes, people go, oh, it's not good to fight. It's not good to beat people up. What do you think? That's because you losing all the fights. If you was winning all them fights, you feel differently about it.
Right. Yeah, I'm not anti-violence. I'm not a pacifist. I'm a conditional pacifist. Like, if you can afford to be nice, be nice. But sometimes you just gotta hurt some fools, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah, James, can you is there a way to turn you up a little bit?
Oh yeah, I can. Hold on. Try to turn that up.
Yeah, you're sounding better.
Yeah,
people need their James Apperson, man. But yeah, man, it's a problem, and we're definitely going somewhere with this. One, we're trying to encourage Melody Joy and others to not be afraid, to feel like you are strong enough. I like what she said. She said, I'm strong enough that I can do this now. And I think that's what a lot of us need to realize.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think you grow and you change. So I don't think you should stay in the same place on this from month to month or year to year. I think some people made up their mind too early about this. And it's like the same way you made up your mind about being a Christian too soon, you may have made up your mind about speaking out against Christianity too soon before you realized how capable you actually are. Go ahead.
Right. Well, some people, it's a transition for a lot of people. So maybe right here in the moment, somebody hasn't found their voice yet, right? And they may need time for that. And that's one of the things that this community and similar communities can do. It's like, look, you can speak your mind and not be an asshole, or look, you can speak your mind and or be an asshole, but you're right. So, but it takes it's just a mindset, right? People can get there, and I think that's one of the things that come from being part of a community is because you've been gaslit all your life. Christianity is heavily gaslighting, and because they've been gaslighting your whole life, you feel like, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't speak up, or maybe it's wrong to, or whatever. And it's like,
right.
Theremin Trees has some great videos about this. It's emotional blackmail and gaslighting combined, and so when I think people find their courage. Like Melody Joy recently found her courage, and
right.
We can. I'm so far past that. Like I wish I had more people to offend. Like I wish I had more people to come out to as atheists.
Well, you're even in a different place than me though, because I feel like you're going. Oh, I hate to say it, but I almost feel like you're being too nice again.
In what way?
Like, because you're trying to be so welcoming in your way of, like, building the community. Like, you really want to give them every chance, right? And I think part of that is, to be honest, you and I are very like-minded in the sense of we see the bigger picture, right? And so we know if you'd known better, you could have done better. If we were in their shoes, we'd be doing their dance, right?
Right.
But for me, I'm just a little bit more, I see all of it as a tactic. I'm on a much shorter leash personally, and I'm trying to protect my flock, and I'm in an Uncle Bobby place, right? I want to attack and be ruthless, and that's just what I feel like I need to do. And I feel like we're seeing it the same way, but I think your response is, and I think maybe it's also just to maintain your peace, right?
A lot of that is to maintain my peace. But I was on someone's stream a couple days ago, and they were Christians, right? They were Catholic Christians, and they were talking about dating, which is what got me thinking about dating.
Okay.
And they had some really, really dumb ideas about addressing a very serious problem, because they recognize that people in their religious communities get date too young, get married too young. Well, I don't want to say date too young, but I mean date with seriousness too young. And so they don't know what they're doing. They haven't figured out life yet. And here they are trying to pick out.
James, can you keep waxing? I want to grab a grinder, and I don't want my woman friend to think can't hear you guys. Go ahead.
Right, do it. So they recognize it as a serious problem because they have these religious communities that push young people into marriage, push young people into serious relationships. And at the same time, they recognize that these young people are ill-equipped to even be venturing into that domain. They just haven't figured out themselves yet. They don't understand life well enough yet. They don't know what to look for in a partner. They don't know what to ask. And they have some pretty unrealistic ideas in their head about how relationships are supposed to go. And even the parts that are realistic enough, they don't have any clue about who's going to be compatible with that vision or how to build that vision. Bibles don't really address this at all. They just treat women like baby vending machines and men as these entitled warrior authority figures, and there's just very little nuance or complexity to relationships in Bibles at all. And because Bible's written by a whole lot of different random people with a whole lot of different random life experiences and views about everything, really. And so there is no really coherent narrative, and to whatever extent there's some semblance of coherence, there's just not a lot of depth there. They just don't go into it, so they're not preparing people for life. So these Christians that were hosting this channel the other day, and I can link it later if somebody's interested. I was
I am.
Awesome. So I'll link that to you. And I was there. I joined the stream once they invited people to join, and I got lots of compliments for my voice and for my personality and for my insights and all that stuff, and I appreciated it. But I didn't have the heart to tell them that they're just sitting on some bullshit. And the thing is, it's not even in terms of their religion, but in terms of their solutions for this relationship paradox that young people are in when they're in these religious environments. And so their solution to it, their proposed idea, was to create a dating site where old ladies in the church and old men in the church screen applicants for the dating site, and they have real conversations with these young people in these churches to like see what they're about, and then they make recommendations about whether or not to let them formally join the dating pool and whether or not to like recommend them to people that they know in the church.
Hang on a sec, James. This would actually work. And I don't know.
That's the way you used to have a matchmaker. Yeah,
I'm halfway being facetious, but so this is just eerily like arranged marriages, right? And for again, I'm ambivalent about any of these things. I don't think any of this shit works, right, James? It doesn't work if you pick them, they pick them, that you just go with random or nobody. None of it works, guys. You all die no matter what. But it's interesting because arranged marriages don't have the fail rate people think they would, and they're not as horrifying as those of us that consider that an essential part of life recognize, right? For people that are in them, it's just a norm, right? And it actually for most people, it actually takes into account what you're saying. So my lab manager was in an arranged marriage, and so she talked to us very openly about it, and she was very happily married, right? And a lot of people are. And what she explained was exactly what you were talking about, James. She said people don't think of it. They think of it from a different cultural context, like ours. Oh, my God, how could you take my right to choose my partner? But think about it. If you have a culture that expects you to get married young, what happens? You haven't figured all this shit out about you, right? Mm-hmm. But a lot of times you're still at the age and stage in life where the elders in your community, as long as they're not using this marriage as a business transaction and they're actually concerned about you being happily married, they know you better than you know yourself type vibe, right? And so she said, like, what happened was our families knew us. And even though we were young, like, they fit us together well. And so, and I was like, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. So in some weird sense, like, especially if you're so strong in the cult, right, that you're going to sign up for a dating app where the church elders get to pick your partner for you. First off, the fact that church elders picked your partner for you is going to give you that magic touch, special Jesus feeling on it, right? It's going to add that secret sauce to the matches. And that's what a lot of us look for. As a secular person, I've been into like exploring more like Match.com and some of these more serious sites, right? And a lot of what they do is they offer you a premium service that features a matchmaker, right? Because one, they're going to upcharge the shit out of it, right? Two, they're going to get you some quote unquote higher quality opportunities because at least they're going to make sure you get the attention of somebody you'd actually be interested in, right? So I'm just trying to say, because I'm going to let you go in on it, James. I'm not here to stop you from doing that. I just want to do what we always do in community building, which is recognize that there's always that little bit of truth, that little bit of pinch of what actually works in intentionally building relationships, right?
Right.
And then that becomes the jumping off point for the, further indoctrination and extremism. But go ahead, James.
Right. Truth. So, I mean, sure, there's lots of logistical problems is what I was thinking about with their particular idea, because no church is big enough to have their own dating site and have that work. I mean, they can try it. I guess if they're a mega church, maybe if they have enough young people, they can try that. But
yeah, my mom's church is big enough that they have a singles ministry. A lot of churches that are large enough do. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. Well, I mean, I told him, I'm like, it makes more sense, I think, if you're going to go that route, because it needs to be church specific or whatever, to just, like, have these events that happen once a month or once a week, however often you think you need it, where the older people in the congregation that are experienced and you consider wise, like, they have a day out. And so the women have a women's day out, the guys have a guy's day out, and they just go do guy bonding fun stuff, right? And they make sure that it's structured in such a way where you have plenty of time to talk, whether it's around a campfire or at the mall or wherever. You're having these conversations, you're getting to know this person where it's not an interview, you're just hanging out, so they don't feel like they're put on the spot, right?
Yeah.
And that gives you a chance to really know them and really make them recommendations and say, if you're dating right now and I happen to know somebody I think maybe you'd be really great with, that kind of thing, right?
Oh, yeah, you mean like with the elders. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
The way my church did it was they just, I think the singles ministry works because a lot of times they just become regular Bible studies, either weekly or monthly, and they're dedicated for the singles ministry. And then they do social events. They do everybody goes out bowling or everybody. And then, people start to break off and pair up. And it's actually kind of nice, to be honest with you, because there's also the relaxation of a lot of the faithfulness. What I mean by that is if, you meet a girl from church and it works, you might feel like it's specially touched by God, and then y'all got to push it. And then if it doesn't work, it's awkward in church, or you both kind of want to dip. What being part of a singles ministry does is it kind of softens the blow, because there's the expectation of, we might start talking and more intentionally for a while, seeing each other for a little bit. And if it doesn't work, it's all good. We're both still part of the same church, right? And so you can they can mix and mingle a little bit more, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, the way my church did it was they had this for the college students. They do have their separate, the all female or all male Bible study, and then they do a lot together, right? So the services, the church is all intergender, and then they're constantly doing social events and outings and retreats and camping trips and conferences and retreats and all of that stuff. And so they end up having a lot of relationships, right? And then there is a lot of elders in the church who see them interacting together. It almost has that effect, but it's just informally, and it comes kind of naturally when you're that intense about the cult, right? Because you want to be with somebody that's into it as much as you are.
Mm-hmm. Sure, absolutely.
Well, the trick is...
Yeah.
Go ahead, James. Finish your thought.
I would say evenly yoked thing, but go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I think part of what makes it work as well is that if you've been praying for this and then these elders get together and make it happen for you, it is pure confirmation that God is answering your prayers. And yes, human hands are all over it, but that is not necessarily the way it will be interpreted. When the story is told, Sister so-and-so and Brother so-and-so did have a hand in it, but it was the Lord who put them all together to make it happen.
See,
can't create world peace,
right?
But he can do that.
Yeah,
so there was a time
he got you laid. Fantastic.
There was a time that I dated a young lady who went to my grandfather's church. And a huge part of the appeal of that for me and my family and everyone else was that, it was awesome, right? I went to, we went to the same church, so we were together on Sundays. And then because, and this was interesting, right? Because it felt fateful, right? It felt like, oh my goodness, the stars have aligned, right? But when I look back at it, she was the only option. She was literally one of maybe less than 4 or 5 females of age, reasonably attractive that was actually serious about the church. Once you filtered through that list, it was like her. You know?
Right.
And so it wasn't like there was 15 choices or anything, right? And then given my life, it's like I was working, playing at my grandfather's church. So when I wasn't working like crazy, and I was in the prosecutor's office, I guess, for Cory Booker or whatever, law department. I was playing drums, so I didn't have a whole lot of other outlets to meet people, right? So it was obvious, but it worked for everybody, right? Because it swept up in the whole narrative. She was really serious and faithful, so she could come anywhere. It was really nice, right? To be honest, she was closer to my grandparents than she was to her own parents. So it was one of those situations where, like, when I was dating her, my grandfather was like, "You better not do nothing to my sweet Kalia." I was like, "What about her hurting your grandson?" You know, that's because that's how close they were, right? So that made it feel magical, even though I could look back on it and be like, well, that was just obvious. Like, there was just, you know what I mean? It's so set up, but to what my one black friend spoke of, the confirmation bias is very powerful.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It was the same thing with my Jesus wife, because she showed up to Newark, the leader of this mission trip, and then wanted to move there. I had a Jesus wife, like a woman I married but never legally married. You've never heard the story?
Wait, I've never heard of. Not only have I never heard the story, I didn't know what a Jesus wife was.
Well,
is that
I don't.
Like a wife in the faith, like Paul is talking about.
Yeah, that's how I think of it. Most people don't really. I mean, this isn't a story that a lot of people have, so I don't know what the right term is. But I use the term Jesus wife because, yeah, it was like a religious fervor marriage. And what happened was, so she led a mission trip. She led a mission team from Colorado. She was college age, and they were high school missionaries. And so they came to visit the church I worked at in Newark. I was like one of the, leaders of the youth program and the director of the summer camp. And so the pastor we all actually worked for was out of town. It's in Florida or something, getting ready to go back to school. And so she got what we call the mission trip high, right? It's like somebody white and privileged and fucking upper middle class. They don't go to Barbados for spring break or whatever. Instead, they come to the hood to serve brown kids for Jesus, right? And then they fall in love with the kids, and they're like, "Oh my God, the work you do is so powerful. I want to move here and live here." And so it's a mission trip high, right? It's like a thing that they're experiencing all this purposefulness and all of this shit. And we have to hit them with the realities of, bitch, we live here, we do this year round. Like, wake up, you're in the hood. These kids all live in housing projects between here. Once in a while, we lose one of these motherfuckers to a stray bullet. You don't want this life, right? Like, you ain't ready, right? And so, it was sort of my job. Plus, there was only little black people on staff, so it was really good for me to have this talk with people. Like, yeah, let's talk. We really love that you're here, but trust me, you want to go home, spend some more of your parents' money, read some more about Newark, New Jersey, and realize this ain't a goddamn game. But she was like committed. Like, nope, I'm doing it. Joining the team. And so then I was smitten with her or whatever. And then what happened was, here's where the faithfulness / pro wrestling, it was all a work, comes in. Danny, the pastor we worked for, was very charismatic. Shout outs to Pastor Danny. I always loved that guy. He's a big mentor in my life. Great guy. Just happens to be a crazy preacher. He was all about intentional relationships, which I still really value, right? This idea that you shouldn't just date somebody for no reason, right? You should go after somebody because you've really met them, you got to know them, and you're trying to build something on purpose, right? And in his worldview, that is marriage. And so basically the idea becomes you really shouldn't even be dating somebody unless you're already pretty sure that you could see this leading to marriage. And then his quite radical methodology of this, that should be the conversation from gate. That's what to him an intentional relationship means. So when I literally started talking to her, it was like, yeah, so hey, I recognize you and I kind of got a little vibe going here, but if I'm going to be pursuing you, it's because we both are understanding from day one that this is going to be leading to a marriage proposal, right? And that's just where I was
I don't
at,
think that's bad.
right? Yeah, that's where it was at. It was like that or don't waste my time. And
I got mixed feelings about that, but go ahead.
Yeah. I'm just trying to tell you how you end up with Jesus life, James.
Show.
Yeah, I'm interested to know what James's point of view is too. Like, why do you have mixed feelings? Go ahead.
Who's going?
Pocket Locker, go ahead.
Well, let me shortcut it.
Go ahead.
Pocket Locker, you go first, then let me know, and I'll jump in.
All right, sure. So basically, what happened was she decided she's got to now move, right, from Colorado to New Jersey, right? And I get my mom on the phone, and I tell my mom, because she's there for a week, and then she's got to fly back to Colorado. And I start telling my mom the story. And my mom, to her credit, recognized that I was in love and that this was one of those Jay's in love moments, and we've just got to go with this. Because, I think to my mom's credit, right, every mom holds out that ambition of you finding yourself romantically settled, right? Mm-hmm. And my mom is one of those people who, it's like, if this is the time, if this is the girl, she wants to, like, get it right from the go, so that she's a big part of that rather than being a fucking obstacle.
She wants to know from the very start, Pocket Locker, that this was the woman for you.
Well,
she knew it.
Well, yeah, but also she wants, if it is, regardless of her feelings, normally and she's failed me on this a couple times, but that's just life. But for the most part, it's like she wants that person to also have memories of my mom trying to help us, right? Not right, because she grew up watching, me date white girls whose families just didn't accept me, right? So she's always tried to make sure that that's not how it is in my family. So anyway, she basically paid for me to fly out to Colorado so that I could then, like, help Jeannie, my Jesus wife, like, pack and drive back across the country. So literally, she gets there on start the week. She Monday, Tuesday, Sunday. I don't remember what day they came in, but I knew she flew back on a Saturday. And I talked to my mom, and by the like that day or day after, whatever, I had like a ticket to Colorado. So then I fly out to Colorado. We throw Jeannie a big going away party. I meet all her friends and people that were in Colorado at the time. Her dad wasn't there because he was out of town for work. Big, huge barbecue, impromptu, after a couple days, and then we drive back to New Jersey, and on the way, we stop at my mom's house, and this is where things get interesting, because the first night we spent at her aunt's house, she has 2 lesbian aunts, so we stop in St. Louis, we spend the night at their place, they're really sweet, then we drive back to my mom's place, because we got to get to New Jersey, right, so St. Louis is on the way, and as is Ohio, right, so we're just trying to not spend money on hotels and shit. And so we're hanging out with my mom for a day. We go to the movies, and then that night, drinking Four Loko, not a good idea. I see Mike Murdoch. Maybe this is also why I became a counter-apologist, because Mike Murdoch ruined my life. Mike Murdoch, for those who don't know, is a big prosperity gospel preacher in North Carolina. He has like 8 homes and planes and all of this shit. He's like the captain of the gospel of prosperity. He's the like sow a seed faith guy. And so I had seen his, how did this work? I saw his seed faith program either like right after I met her or maybe like right before I met her or something. And so what ended up happening was I got paid a salary by the church because I told them they had to, because I wasn't going to raise my own funding, and I also had other jobs. And so everybody pretty much except for me on our leadership team had to raise their own support, usually through friends, family, and other churches. And they had to like write letters and give presentations and speeches and literally sing for their supper to get enough money to work at this church. But Mike Murdoch basically seed faith sermon made me decide when I first met her to like give her, I think it was like a third of my salary for the summer to start her. Because I'm like, girl, if you're really serious about moving here, your dumb ass is going to have to raise money, right? That's another part of the get off the mission trip high talk. It's like, you do not realize you're going to come here with no money. You're going to have to raise your own support. They're not going to pay you. Like, you're going to have another job, basically, of raising funding just so you can work this job. Like, what's wrong with you? All right, if you're that crazy for Jesus and these black kids, bring it on. So I give her a third of my salary because I'm like, you just need something to kickstart you. Which now I'm thinking about sounds like something my one black friend would do. And so I do that. She's got that. And then when we're now on our way back home and we're staying at my mom's house and we're watching TV, flipping through the channels, and I see the same Mike Murdoch sermon, he goes on this spiel about how he got in a similar situation when he first met his wife, and he gave her like some, I don't know, amount of money that he couldn't afford at the time, but he always tells this bullshit ass story about how in the end he got his wife, so whatever the $1,000 or whatever it was that he couldn't afford at the time ended up being a seed of faith, and in return he gets this amazing marriage with his wife, so he got more out of it. So he tells this story, and the fucking light bulb goes off in my head, and all this shit comes full circle. And literally, I used to always have this ring I wore on my finger, and I got down on one knee, I told her the whole story, and I proposed right then and there. And then the next day, we went to the movies with my mom, and I told my mom that we were engaged. And so we drove back to New Jersey. She worked at the church. It was actually really fun. We had a great time working together. I really loved Jeannie. She should have just been my girlfriend. We were just too young, right? If we'd have just been a girlfriend, boyfriend, it would have been fine. And even as it is now, it's fine. But what happened was, since she was from Colorado, right, and I went to Penn State, I ended up leaving and moving back to Pennsylvania. She moved back with me. So at this point, we live in Pennsylvania. She's from Colorado, but we had met and worked in New Jersey. So we got married in New Jersey. We got married at the church we worked at, and then we did our reception at my grandfather's church, which was literally like less than 10 miles away. But her pastor from Colorado flew in to marry us. And I knew him. He was part of the whole trip, and I met him out there, seen him again. So I was cool with him. So literally, because we got married in New Jersey, but we lived in Pennsylvania, and we got married by a pastor from Colorado, nobody ever asked us for a marriage license, right? We were just supposed to eventually go get one in Pennsylvania and say, hey, we got married in New Jersey, and register our marriage. We just never.
It works in arrears?
Yeah.
Marriage license?
Yeah. We just never did it. Yeah, because we were really married. Yeah. So we just.
My fiance and I had a conversation about this last week. Because I'm like, I don't know how it works. I think this is how it works.
Check. I don't know. Check. But in that situation, at least in Pennsylvania at the time, yeah, that was what we could do. But we just never did it, right? And then when we ended up having problems and, splitting, it was just at that point kind of fortunate, right? It was like, it was easy to just break up, right? Essentially just break up and it just becomes the next girlfriend. But yeah, I call her my Jesus wife because we got married in our church in front of our friends and family in the whole world, but never legally. So Jesus wife is the term.
Our viewers will agree you were married to that woman legally, and you are not legally broken up from that woman, are you? You're not legally separated. Did you divorce her while a Christian? Which makes Jesus highly upset.
Yeah.
Because you
there's no
made
divorce
an adulterer out of her.
Yeah. No, she actually recently got remarried. Yeah. And
oh no, she didn't. She has two husbands. I feel like reciting Jesus at the well. You have had 5 husbands, and the man you have now is not your husband.
You know what? To be honest with you, man, I got to be honest with you.
I need her phone number to call her.
I'm sure.
See how often she has done this.
Seriously, my black friend, I'm sure you're experiencing this now. I'm the type of person who, I'm like James. I don't know if I believe in marriage or just to say even if it's a thing that works, if it'll ever work for me. And I've sort of had to say that maybe the love of my life is a role that's just been shared by a number of stars rather than one. You know, it's one of them crew cast films or whatever, where the lead rotates. But no, you know, I just think if you're lucky enough to fall in love with somebody instantly in some sort of whirlwind, crazy, even if it is a mission trip story, and they feel the same way about you, and you give it a go, even if it doesn't work, I just think it's a pretty awesome thing to live through, right? That kind of whirlwind romance, your kids, and you try. It doesn't work out, but you know, I don't wish her any harm. She doesn't wish me any harm. My family still thinks the world of her family and all that. So we tried it. It's a great story. Like so many other things in my life, I think it's a great story. Mm-hmm. But James, go ahead. Right. Tell us.
James,
why you
go for it.
Don't approve.
I'll beat Pocket Locker up when you're done.
Fair. Fair. Can you guys hear me okay?
I hear you very well.
Okay, so if you have a couple of Wiccans and they decide to make a relationship or whatever, and they do this ritual where they cast a bonding spell, right? And now after the ritual and all the ritual words and everybody cheers, and now you're officially bonded together through some spiritual thing that's like invisible, but it's real and all that shit. That's not real. It's just make-believe, right? That's just people like trying to make themselves feel like they're more connected, because apparently they didn't feel all the way connected before. And it's like, that's the same kind of thing that marriage is. If you ignore the property rights issues, which are just legal technicalities for special rights and privileges, if you set that aside, because it's really not even what we're talking about here, marriage isn't a thing. When people tell me they're married, I'm like, no, you ain't. You're just not. It's not a thing. It's like when Wiccans tell me they've been bonded through some bonding ritual and bonding magic. I'm like, no, you haven't. I mean, you can think it, you can feel it, right? You can live it. But you know, it's just a narrative. It's just a story people tell to make something feel nicer, right? It's more real.
And then we reinforce it, right? With sort of we then attach some rights and privileges to that, and then we start to shift the conversation to where almost like, well, are we talking about this concept, or are we talking about the rights and privileges associated, right? Because then we just say the rights and privileges shouldn't be associated with this status that you and some other person just arbitrarily decide, hey, we're this thing now. The thing I'll say is, I think for us, obviously we were just too young. That's number one. Number two, it put way too much pressure on us. Number three, I think it was also part of that narrative was we tried to wait. We didn't make it. We made it till the week of our marriage, right?
The sex part, you tried to wait on that? The sex part,
yeah, you're trying to wait on the sex part, which was, like, neither of us were virgins. It was just, again, part of that purity culture that we're buying into and wanting to have a blessed marriage, yada, 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 right? And I think that was bad, because it would have been better for our relationship if we could have, let's just say, dealt with some of the issues that would have come up earlier, right? When you're young and dumb, you don't know that there are those type of issues that need to be dealt with before you decide to spend the rest of your life with somebody. And so I think that hurt us. I also just feel like I don't know. But I want to say that I think some of the things that came with it were actually good, right? It was supportive in terms of the community we were around. I appreciated the fact that we should, do premarital counseling, and it made us really communicate about our relationship a lot. So there were certainly things that I benefited from. Even now, really, like, I miss being around my church, and part of that is being around a lot of good couples. I don't know what it is about that. Because I'm like you, James. I don't know that I believe in marriage. I don't know that I want to be married. I'm not sure that I'm with monogamy or any of that, right? But I do, there's just something about families, right? There's families, there's not families. And I do find that having strong, loving couples in your social life is good for you. Does that make sense?
So.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah, so it's like a weird thing. So I think that was part of it. So again, I just think there's some things from the model we could take without the religious aspects. Go ahead, my boyfriend.
You use the key word, model. When we are children, we need modeling when we are adults, we might need modeling more. Even though we know more about the world, we are subject to more confusion than we were when we were little. I have some neighbors, and they have two small daughters. So I've noticed when they were learning to ride bikes or whatever, my style of showing them what to do was different than what I saw their father do. It's not. I'm not watching them all the time. Who knows what he did when I wasn't hanging out with their family? But he would tell his daughters, do this. And me, I'm walking up and down the street with them while they're on the bike or in the driveway and telling them, here's what's happening. Here's the process that you're going through as you pedal up this. Have you noticed it gets harder and harder to pedal? That's because you're on an incline. When we turn around, you're going to go faster and faster without even trying. That's because we're on a decline. Now you would have to pedal backwards to use your brake to slow yourself down. And his daughter is internalizing all this. With the younger one, she's riding her tricycle and she can't turn. So I'm taking the handlebar with her and I'm giving her helping her figure out a turning radius. And before I came out here, went on the road again, one daughter's riding a bike without training wheels. And the other daughter is in the driveway as I'm talking to her mom and dad, and she's making like this infinite loop pattern around us, which is what I showed her. Here's how you turn around in your driveway. And she's smiling at me like, do you remember when you showed me this? And I'm smiling back like, you were doing exactly as you were shown. Well done. So at a very early age, modeling is key. When we get older, but we're getting more information from more places. You might listen to a podcast such as this one. You watch Dr. Drew or whoever. You've watched documentaries. You're on 9 websites and you're reading what they say about dating. And it's more confusing and harder. Yes, there's some overlap. But depending on who you are, I know for me, as I have gotten older, the dream of being married, having kids, it hasn't gone away, but it hasn't happened either. So now I guess my ears are more crucially listening to what people are saying, which is how I got in a way, which is why I'm engaged now, because I listened to my 87-year-old neighbor. She made a particular suggestion, and last year when I was in Wisconsin, I just thought about it again, and I said, you know what? I'll try what she suggested. Worked out well so far.
What was that? Because I was going to ask you why now and all of that stuff.
Well, look, the woman I'm with, I would have been happy to have met her when she was 20 years old. She's fantastic. But what my neighbor suggested, the wife of the guy I bought my house from, he had passed away. Terrible designer. Not a skill he could claim. Something he could do, but not a skill. She and him, my neighbor, who's still around, she said that they had met because she was a mail order bride. And I had known someone else in my life who had a mail order bride, and she was fantastic, and he was pretty great, and they made a wonderful couple. And I remember when I was flipping burgers, he took his name was Dave. Dave took the job flipping burgers to make the extra money to bring his wife from Korea.
Hang on, James, are you typing?
Oh yeah, sorry.
You should mute your mic. If you mute your mic, you can type as loud as you want. When you're not
you want to read that back to me, James?
No, you're good. Stenographer.
Want to read that back to me? And I sort of dismissed it. She'd been suggesting it for years, though. Like 4 years went by. My neighbor suggesting this every year, multiple times. So finally, I was, in Wisconsin. I was bored. So her voice sort of went through my mind. And I searched the internet for mail order brides, and I found this website. It was the first one. I did not think this was of any value, really. So I set up my profile, put up pictures and all that jazz. Wrote the honest truth about myself, and unlike Match.com or Plenty of Fish, which is the ghetto of dating apps, Plenty of Fish is, if you're there, you may want to find something else. I don't know that it's going to work out for you. But I was on like 5 or 6 of them, all which seem to be owned by Match.com. And things weren't really working out. I met nice women, but I didn't meet like, this is the woman. And on this international website, it was like, I think it was within 4 days or something like that, that I had written to my fiance for the first time. So
yeah, I would say even with me, even on some of the regular dating sites, a lot of my best matches and most sustained contacts are with international women. Now, it doesn't really work for me because usually I can't get to them and they can't get to me. So
Airplane.
there will become a time in life, hopefully, where that becomes maybe more of a possibility. But it certainly has helped because like I think it's just partially because of the way our dating culture is, that when you're trying to match locally, it's just a cesspool. It's very difficult to stand out, and then I think it's a lot easier. Especially when because you're dealing with people typically who themselves have a more international perspective. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I will help you write your profile. I'll shoot you a message of what website I went to. You need help, I'll help you write your profile.
Must be able to relocate to Michigan.
Well, and there's plenty of women that are willing to do that are in other parts of the United States. When I was on that website,
True.
I also looked for women that were here in the U.S. Like, who's already here? And I don't care if they were from Tallahassee or French Lick, Indiana. Wouldn't have mattered to me. Or Bulgaria, but I looked in places where I had lived before, like Tbilisi and Bulgaria, and Canada and all that stuff. And you can pick wherever you want to try to find somebody from. And I just decided, just choose the world. Don't make it anything specific. And that realization came within days of being on the site, because there are great people from everywhere. So it just so happens that I'll tell you, Pocket Locker, I'll tell you, James, when you think that person is right for you, when you got that feeling, there are going to be obstacles in the way, and you can go right through them. If maybe this is a lesson for us all. If you know you're right, it doesn't matter what obstacles put in front of you. It's on the way to where you're going. It's not in the way to where you're going. So just bear that in mind. And
I think that is such a good thing about to think about, these conversations around faith. And let me use this as a segue to the clip I wanted to show you. Also, speaking of women,
okay, please.
that they're just the marriage of this next woman I'm about to show you is that it's just an obstacle. It's not in the way, it's on the way. So Anna from the Young Turks, listen, baby, we can still work this out. You don't
Anna. I have a friend that looks like Anna Kasparian.
You and me.
My friend's in New York.
Oh, I can do New York.
She's from Georgia.
I might be headed. My family's in New Jersey.
Oh yeah, she's pretty great. I'm gonna visit her when I go to New York later this month.
Also, Pocket Locker 86 at the Streamlabs dropped my socials.
I'll show her a video of you. Oh, God. I'll show her a video of you when I'm hanging out with her.
That's always a fantastic first impression.
Yeah, here's a video of him, Tammy. But she looks like Anna.
Well, all right. I mean, that's all I need to know. It's a very intelligent decision. If you wake up in the morning deciding to look like that, I agree with you.
Oh,
my friend is rather smart too.
These comments might be strong, but it's how I genuinely feel.
All right, but guys, for those of you who haven't seen this before, this is Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks. I think the Young Turks are, really leading platform for the left. Not everybody agrees with that, but that's okay. But Anna Kasparian went viral with this comment, and I think it's really on topic to our conversation today.
I don't care that you're a Christian. I don't care what the Bible says. Like, I feel like it's a clown show, like sitting here trying to decipher what your little mythical book has to say about these very real political issues, right? I don't care if you're Christian. In fact, I will fight for you to have your religious liberty and practice your Christianity. I believe in that. I don't believe in Christianity, which means that you do not get to dictate the way I live my life based on your religion. I don't care what the Bible says. You have every right in the world. All those women who identify with your religion have every right in the world to not get an abortion, to not take birth control, but they do not have the right to dictate my life and what I decide to do with my body. I don't care about your goddamn religion. I'm so tired of having nonstop conversations about what the Bible says. You live your life in the way that you interpret the Bible. Again, I don't care, but you don't get to take the Bible and tell me, well, the Bible says this in this chapter in this verse. I don't care. I don't care. I don't believe in it. And I have the right, based on our Constitution, to not believe in it.
Wow. I saw that. I've seen that before. All right, Pocket Lucky, you can't share these pictures of my friend. I'm sending them to you.
Okay.
You can't. She'd be pissed because this was if they were posted without her permission.
No, I won't.
So,
all right, but yeah, that's sort of the vibe that I've been on lately, because I feel
I could tell.
because I feel like I got in this to do counter-apologetics, and somewhere along the way, I keep now getting the apologetics for the apologist. Well, let's understand them, and let's understand where they're coming from, and and then they're weaponizing it. That's their tactic, and so I almost sometimes feel like, and I go back to addiction. Sometimes, if you're really trying to understand why somebody's hooked on something, we shift our conversation to enablers at some point. Well, maybe we've got to do something about the people in your life that are not helping you get this right. And I think that at some point that puts a different burden on us, because we're a few things simultaneously. One, we're people who, for a lot of us, have come out of this religion. We do understand it, we do know it, but we no longer believe it. So our truth is very different than everybody else. It may be that you can pull up at a Thanksgiving table and everybody can bow their heads and say what they're thankful to Jesus for this year. And everybody else can genuinely do that except you. It might also be the case that on top of just it being the reality for you, that you might be the only person in that person's life who can, like, help them out of here. And then the other...
Are you saying...
Go ahead. And
you go ahead.
The only other thing I was going to add was just that you also might be underestimating how good you are at this. At some point, we have the resources. We know what they should read, what videos they could watch, what the response is to the different, arguments and concerns that they might have. We know how to, we know they're going to do the scramble and come up with different apologetics arguments, and we're good at having those conversations. So at what point does it become almost an ethical obligation? It'd be like if I'm sitting around in a room full of people who are denying evolution. Well, it'd be one thing if I was just some rando off the street, but as an evolutionary biologist, my silence could be taken a little bit differently. Like, no, man, if you don't speak up, then what hope do we have? And that's kind of where I'm getting at to a lot of us. It's like some of us, and I'm not talking about everybody here, but some of us do this counter-apologetics thing all day, every day. Matter of fact, James, I'm going to be honest with you. Part of the frustration about building community, you want to hear one of my big frustrations about building this community? Mm-hmm. These are freaking Bible nerds. If you, James, say, hey, I'm going to have a movie night, we're going to do health and fitness stuff, blah, 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 people will be down with it, right? Yeah. Till Derek goes live talking about some Jesus stuff. Till so-and-so else goes live talking about the Bible this and Bible that. In other words, we're supposed to be a community, but the hardest thing about building community with atheists is that we're so obsessed with being atheists. It's literally hard for me to have streams where we're gaming or hanging out or, you know, it's hard for us to get together and just watch a football game together. But if we do a stream talking about that Bible here y'all come a running. So literally, some of y'all do this all day, every day, and it's your favorite thing to do.
It is my favorite thing to do.
It's your favorite thing to do. But then hang on, but here's where it's going. But
it's like within the top 7.
Yeah, and you're really good at it. And then what happens? You get around your friends and family, and now you shy all of a sudden. They ain't got nothing to say about religion. And I get it because it's so uncomfortable. No, but that's what we're not you, but that's what we're here to speak to, right? And I'm not guys, I'm not here to call y'all out and say if you don't, I'm not gonna be your friend anymore. I'm here to encourage you and just say if you really feel like you want to speak your mind going forward, think about all these reasons why you might be perfectly well reasoned to do so. And you might be better at it than you think. Like, y'all got this. Go ahead. We strong. That's all I'm trying to say. Go ahead, fellas.
Well, I would say a lot of my approach is not geared to change someone's mind, but to open it. I'll let them change their mind. I'm trying to introduce a new way for that person to view what they believe, which is as objectively as possible, because they don't. There may be some sort of freedom that has been given by believing in the Bible, or at least they think that's what's occurred, right? And some people, we know it's genuine. It's genuine. They were addicted to this or that behavior, this or that drug, and when they found Jesus, their suffering was ended by his sacrifice on the cross, and you cannot tell them different, and nor should you, even if it's not true, right? No matter how ridiculous the claims of the Bible are, you shouldn't do that. There was a post one of my high school, well, I've known the guy since kindergarten, friends put on Facebook, and I always, when he puts like a Bible quote, I can't help myself if I have time, I chime in and I correct him. I show him what's wrong with the thinking in that quote. I will never reach him. But the number of people that are viewing those posts keep growing because they want to see, well, what's he going to say now? What's my one black friend going to say to refute what's up here? And this is this guy's worldview, right? Well, I'm showing him, look, you realize what you say the Bible says. You're taking it out of context. And I'm showing you why. One was about life after death. Like there are no ghosts that roam the earth. And I commented, so Elijah brought somebody back to life. Jesus brought somebody back to life. Brought several people back to life, right? Lazarus, including. He didn't wake up and roam the earth. All those zombies that I mentioned at the top of the show, all those zombies were walking around. People don't roam the earth? Ever? So he's trying to say to be absent from the body is to be with the Father. So Jesus says to the guy, you'll be in paradise with me today. And I was like, did you know the old meaning of the word paradise is a walled garden? So yeah, they were going to be taking off those crosses and buried. in the cemetery. Most likely something with a wall around it, trees, grass, that sort of thing. It's real simple. But to him, it's holy. So I can't, me explaining it away will have no effect on him. But there are other people reading that stuff that'll go, let me look this up. And then when they do, oh, I didn't realize that was the case. And I would love to tell people these stories are allegory. If you're taking them as truth, then you have some nonsense. If you can keep it allegorical, you've got something you can really do.
I think it's so interesting because, and I was thinking maybe we should read these type of Facebook exchanges, or I should start trying to have more of these Facebook exchanges myself, and then I can get into some more genuine exchanges with Christians, because part of what I feel like is frustrating me about what goes on my channel and James's channel is I don't know that we're getting that. Like, James, do you get the feeling that, like, for instance, there's some benefit if we deal with Stephanie McGuire or Tangelo because there are more Christians that can be reached? I always get the feeling like they're the oddballs in our crowd. There probably aren't a lot of Christians that we could get through, like, watching us. And if there were, those people are so out on the fringe, they wouldn't be representing their perspective anyway.
So, when it comes to somebody like Otangelo or Stephanie McGuire, Stephanie McGuire is worse about it. She gaslights constantly. You know, she doesn't even have an off mode for her gaslighting. And she's constantly, like, you'll be in the middle of a conversation with her, and she doesn't even either she doesn't accurately remember the last 10 seconds of the conversation you were actually in, or she pretends not to remember how those actually went. It's that kind of person. You can't have a real discussion with these people. Besides which, they'll just rage quit in the middle of it anyway. So, what you really have to do, if you want to have these conversations and let other people see them and read them or whatever, is do what most of the people... This is the reason why rationality rules or apologia or other people will usually just have... They'll take something that Christians have said and they'll walk you through everything that's wrong with a thing that they've just said and leave it at that, right? Because if you have an active live conversation with somebody that is going to gish gallop you and push logical fallacies and cite false facts that you now need time to go look up because you've never heard this bullshit before, or you know, other stunts, like, it completely ruins the flow of the conversation, and it gives Christian observers a false impression of points being scored for their side. It's the reason why when they watch a debate, they walk away from that. Even if the atheist was completely owning the discussion with facts and logic, the Christian fundamentalist will still walk away from that debate thinking their side won the debate. Because they think that because they're thinking the exact same way as the person in the debate, right? So it just, live conversations with these people rarely go well for the audience, because the skeptics, they'll get something out of it, right? But like the Christians, they'll just feel like their beliefs are being reaffirmed, because the false facts that get stated by the people on their side of it are just fact in their mind. Like, it's like talking to a Trump-tard, right? Like, it's just, no matter how many false facts they get fed, that's reality. Is if you get in a debate with those people, their debater will spew all kinds of false facts about crazy, crazy shit. And the people watching that debate from their side of it don't walk away thinking, wow, our crazy shit was exposed for crazy shit. They walk away thinking, yeah, we really proved that lizard men have taken over the government and that there's a Pizzagate pedophile ring. And, you know, they just... You can't talk to these people. You just can't. So it works out better to just talk on our own and then let people observe it.
So this is kind of where I've been going, and I do want to engage with the other side. And my one black friend, don't be too flustered, because one of the things I've been telling people is that is what Hot Program is for. That is what me and you established this show for, right? It is a space that we want to be friendly to theists. We want to talk to the other side. And not even to like you said, we don't even want to necessarily tell them not to believe what they believe so much as we want to understand what they believe, right? So what I'm saying is, because when I first of all, there was no plan. You know, my vision is changes. But it was originally to start this show with you, and then I started doing all this other stuff, thinking that would help us build Hot Program. And now it's just like I realize all this other stuff I want to do is essentially going back to my life as a streamer and building up what I want to do as a content creator, and sort of leaving Hot Program as one of the spaces that is willing to be a bit more friendly to the other side, because like James says, it just gets very frustrating. And James, the other thing is, somebody asked about Stephanie Trenton, and I was wondering what you were thinking about her. So I'll ask you that, and then I'll come back to what I was going to ask.
Well, I mean, what do they want to know about her?
I think that was what we had in mind when we mentioned Stephanie. It was Cameron. He just wanted to know what you think about.
Oh, Stephanie Trenton. I thought, yes. Now, Stephanie Trenton is a completely different person than Stephanie McGuire.
Right.
Stephanie McGuire is the person that gaslights habitually and can't.
Yeah. So I want to hit Stephanie Trenton, and then I got some questions.
Stephanie Trenton is a very deep, complex thinker, but because of it, she has a different kind of relationship to language than most people do. Now, I find it beautiful and poetic, but that only works well in social settings when somebody whose brain works that way has a second mode where they can switch over to normal people use of language. Otherwise, they're just going to be misunderstood the entire time they're talking, right? And then it becomes this homework assignment to perpetually try to decode what she's saying. It's work, and nobody wants to put the work.
My one black friend has a question. Go ahead, my one black friend.
No, bring her to me. Bring it to me. So let me explain why I say that. And James, I'll make sure that you get my phone number. When this person is on with you, if it's at an hour that I can chime in, you
we don't
call.
know if they're going to come back.
I don't know. I don't think she's coming back, but if she does, I'll send it to you.
All right. Well, I'm coming to your program if that's the case.
Fair.
So here's how to handle people like that. Again, I used to be a writer. I wrote so many beautiful things, except for not books. I wrote screenplays, trying to get into that. That didn't work out. I wrote poems, songs, all that stuff. So I get it, like the creativity in trying to implant that in the speech that you share with other people. I totally get it. Symbolism. I could walk back to my hotel using only symbolism, only stepping on symbolism, get all the way there. So what you need to do is speak to people who talk like that in a way where you're trying to get them to define what they mean. So you've heard me say, when we've had people on the Hot program, correct me if I misunderstand you. Correct me if I'm wrong when I'm trying to rephrase what they have said and give it back to them, right? That puts them in a position where they need to clarify. That does two things. It helps them realize that they're being vague and they should be more clear in their thoughts. And it also causes them to rethink what they've said. Like, wait, maybe I don't mean what I said. When it's coming out of their mouth, we've all seen people reconsider a point of view because they'll pause themselves in the middle of speaking it.
Yeah.
You know, when you challenge them on it. So feel free to do that. Have those types of people spell it out. What are you saying to us? How should we interpret that? Go ahead.
People in chat give her that kind of pushback a lot, and they don't seem to get very far with it. And
you're the host.
Yeah, I try to help, but it's like sometimes I don't even know what Stephanie means, and I'll ask her, and she doesn't really give a good explanation. And she speaks in metaphor and allegory and complex abstract terms. Like, I'm sure, her brain just works that way. And it's distracting to the chat stream anyway, because people are trying to stay on topic, and she's saying all this stuff, and they have no idea if she's on topic or not, because they don't know what she's saying. And they're like, what do you mean by this? And a lot of times, she says something that sounds really offensive. And now they're pushing her on it. Like, she pushes ideas about God, but she doesn't mean a literal God. And I've explained to my channel like 100 times, please don't use the word God in my channel unless you mean a literal God, because you're in a setting with atheists, and you start pushing the idea of God, they're going to push back thinking you're trying to promote religion. And if a religion is not what you mean, if you mean an abstract, right, then just say what you mean by the abstract. Save yourself the grief. Just go right to what you mean, and she doesn't listen. But anyways, the bigger problem we had with Stephanie wasn't that. The bigger problem we had with Stephanie started, I think, on Jay's channel. It was a couple nights in a row she was doing this, where we were talking about, like, COVID and precautions and things like that. And she's really passionate about how sure she is that masks shouldn't be a thing and vaccinations shouldn't be a thing and all these other precautions, and that the virus isn't even deadly, like the media's been lying to us, and it's not dangerous and all this shit. And she's proof of it because she didn't take the vaccine and she's fine. And so she doesn't understand how to use Google as a research tool. She doesn't understand how science works at all. She doesn't understand how to do her own research or even reasoning on things. And so she's pushing all this shit on with Jay, and Jay's not having it. He lets her know right up front, this isn't going to fly here. And she kept doing it. And, you know, I backed Jay up to an extent, but I'm like, man, how much of this argument do we really have with this woman? And then she's on my channel a lot more. She was until the other day. And she did it again when Jay was on my channel. She came directly after Jay. Knowing it would upset him, she still came right after him with that bullshit. And at first, I just, like, didn't want either of them discussing this, but then I got involved, and I shouldn't have. Because I didn't realize that, because I know I have complex PTSD, but I did not realize this was a trigger issue for me until I went off on Stephanie. And, like, people are like, whoa, I don't normally see James like this. And then I felt bad, right? Because even though everything I said was logical and made sense and was truth and she needs to hear it, like, I didn't need to yell it. I didn't need to drop F-bombs. I didn't need to completely, like, let my voice go up, like, 3 or 4 octaves. Like, I just, like, I was so upset with her. Because she just represents this larger pool of crazy nutters that are out there destroying lives. And if she wants to do that, I'm the same way with axe murderers. Like, axe murderers can be in my channel, but don't talk about your axe murdering, right? Don't bring that here, right? And I'm the same way with people that refuse to do all these precautions they need to do. Fine, you'll never know how many lives you're ruining to people you killed. You'll just never know. And it's interesting that you'll never care. But don't bring that here, right? Don't tell the room that you're an ex-murderer. Just be one. Own it quietly and keep on topic to the shit we're talking about, right? And if we happen to be talking about murders, don't interrupt with murders are great. And like in any seriousness, unless you're just kidding. If we're talking about axes and we've got some mighty fine axes in our shed and we love chopping wood with them, don't interrupt with, I like chopping skulls with them. Unless you're just kidding, right? If you're serious, keep it to yourself. We don't want to know. There's that kind of thing. I tried explaining this to her, and she just wouldn't listen. And I went off on her, and then she's like, are you talking to me? She's slow. It took her 20 minutes to realize I was talking to her. And everybody's like, yeah, he's talking to you. and she's like, I'll just leave if you're talking to me. And I'm like, yes, please just go.
So, James, I talked about this yesterday, and I wanted to, let me just bring this up real quick. And I was really proud of you when you said that. And I don't think you were in my chat, at least when I talked about it. And I said the reason that moment really was great for me was because it would have been okay for any of us as your friends or mods to just time her out or block her, especially at that point. We had sort of seen enough. But she did the sort of typical YouTube antagonist thing. Are you talking about me? If not, I'm out, right? The I'm so indignified that you would speak to me that way, right? Yeah. And you actually said, just go. And the reason is because a lot of people, it fits into their persecution complex. Yeah. And then they go, oh, the mods block me, the bots are too strict, all of this stuff. And they don't understand sometimes that you've gone too far with the community and friends of a content creator and therefore that content creator. And so it gave so much powerful voice for you to say, I don't want you here. If this is how you're going to act, right? Right. And I always say this to people. I wish people had a different, broader definition of consent, which recognized that just because I have a public space that means anyone can use it, it doesn't mean that I feel everyone is welcome to it. And I can't, even when you time somebody out or block them, you can't stop them from watching you. I actually wish you could. I really wish YouTube had an option called make person blind to your channel or something. And they could just no longer even see your channel. Right?
Yeah, I wish.
But instead, it's like you can't stop people from hate watching you, essentially. Or watching you after you've expressed that you don't want them in your community. But it's really important to me because it establishes that desire. And it makes it clear. It's basically like saying, you know, I can't stop you from putting your hands on me, but I'm making it very clear you're not welcome to. Right? And I just think that was important for you to speak up and say that, because then it makes it clear that this is the type of people that you're dealing with. You're literally dealing with the person who has said, I don't want you here. I'd rather you go somewhere else. And then the fact that they don't or won't or whatever really says there's something deeply broken with them, because they're dealing with these communities where they'd rather be antagonists than go somewhere that they're welcome and watching something that they actually are supportive of. The other thing that bothers me is this is what I feel about our kindness going too far. From the beginning of that, she was sitting on some weaponized nonsense about the vaccine, which she only brought up because we were expressing our frustrations about it. So it was weaponized from the start. And I don't understand, or I guess I could say I do understand, but I'm getting frustrated because to me, we're already dealing at a disadvantage. I'm already putting the kid gloves on when I let you attack me and pretend I didn't realize you were attacking me. But I feel like that's where I'm kind of differing from people. Like I'm thinking from now on, people just start with that. You just call it out from the beginning. What do you mean the masks don't work? No, you're wrong. Sorry. No. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know where to draw that line, James.
I see Melody Joy has joined us, and hello, Cameron. I see you too.
Cameron and AR.
I don't really know how to use this still.
James, you still here?
Yeah, I'm still
Lucy Love is still with us.
What do you think about that though, James? Because we tend to wait, right, until it's gotten personal or they've violated 3-4 warnings.
Well, there's this expectation that we have that if you're here in this adult setting, having these adult conversations or trying to participate in them or listening to them or whatever, that you've got a certain amount of respect for the people hosting the show, people that are guests on the show, people that are in the chat. And if you're it's just, and sometimes people just slip, like they say something they shouldn't have said, and I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I wait and we correct them and they say some more shit. And I have been too patient in that way. Like, I was too patient in terms of how long it took me to set, because I was quick to set the boundary, but then I was slow to enforce it. And then when I finally enforced it, it's because by then I'd lost my temper, right? And that's not okay for me to do. Even, right. This is not okay. So, like, yeah, I waited too long to enforce the boundary, and if I had enforced it sooner, I wouldn't have lost my cool and could have enforced it better, right? Now,
there will be some trade-off, though, because, if you enforce the boundary sooner, which I'm happy to do, but I'm willing to pay the price, you know me, we're just going to be seen less as the super-friendly atheist, right? They'll be, as soon as you come in saying vaccines don't work, or, whatever, they'll say, we're quick-tempered, and then they just put us in the bin of those hostile. But I get it, and I'm kind of like, I'm also feeling like, I'm feeling a lot of females, James. I'm feeling a lot of females. And what I notice is when we come out and say, tell your religion to go fuck itself,
right?
We're often hit with the, well, don't you think there's a nicer way to put it? But when a pretty girl, Heathen Queen, Emma Thorne, or all these other, Uncle Bobby was listening to somebody named Princess Diana or whatever, and they were just like, you can fuck off. And if your religion tells you to make a metaphor of women's bodies, you can just fuck right off. And I was like, I'm feeling more like that tone. I'm inspired by these inspiring young ladies around me, because I want to tell these people to just go fuck right off and be celebrated for that. Like, why do I have to pander to it? Also, they don't give us that type of grief. Like, once Darth Dawkins thinks you're antagonistic to him, he'll block you as soon as he sees you somewhere. Like, they don't give us what we give them. And I just, at some point, I don't know. It's like, I get the sociological perspective. If I were in their shoes, I'd be doing their dance, but I'm not. Mm-hmm. And their dance is pissing me off. And I'm not willing to give them more than I'm willing to give me, especially because they're not earning it. They're not. If we were having a reasoned disagreement over something that was true, cool. You go your way, I go mine. But when your way is interfering with mine and your way is literally imaginary, you just need to grow up.
Right.
And if somebody hasn't told you now, they need to tell you. Go ahead, my black friend.
I think being able to see things from the other person's perspective is the key. So from the perspective of the believer, you are imagining there's not a God. There's definitely a God. I know him. I love him. He loves me. He had his son die for me. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
It goes there.
Right.
I mean, you hear it in the voice. You see it in the physicality, the investment that they have, right?
Right.
But we as atheists, often we say things in such a, I kind of think I do, in a detached manner from all emotion. Like none of that's there. If I need to say something that is corrective in a way where it's not, why don't you get it, the individual, but why don't you get it as in the body of Christ? Why don't they get it?
Sure.
My tones are often different. Like, why don't you all see it? There are enough of you to see it.
Yeah.
And I have to approach it from the standpoint, they just want to believe. We see it in our society, right? Individuals have difficulty accepting reality as it is. From my perspective, buy a freaking dirt bike and get out there and jump over stuff and have a wonderful time. Don't go shoot up a school. You know what? You got money, get a fancy car and find some really exciting roads and learn to drive that car well, and then go out there on those roads and have fun.
Right.
You like going to see carnivals? Get on those little tiny roller coasters and all that stuff and really live it up. But don't hurt somebody else. The Bible is very interesting that in one of the Psalms, God is riding through the sky on the back of his cherubim. But in another part, if I'm not mistaken, God himself has wings. Well, why is that? And, I was talking with my brother about it. Red Bull. I was talking with my brother about it. I'm all out of my seltzer, otherwise I would have held it up. He says, why do you think it says that? I'm like, well, I'll be honest. It's very exciting to see that God is riding around the sky on the equivalent of He-Man's battle cat. It's interesting that the way that those people were thinking back then, but it's not necessarily consistent. Because as many before me have pointed out, those are different people writing that story. Now, something we hear, right? I don't know who said this first, but someone said to Christians that the way that the Bible is written, it is completely coherent. Even though it's written by numerous authors, it has the same voice from the beginning to the end. That's only true to someone who has no clue what the Bible says. Right? You haven't thought it through. If you can read through Ecclesiastes and you think the Bible has one single voice written the whole way through it, you're wrong. Right. You read Revelation and you think the same thing, you're wrong. You read the Gospels and they can't even get on the same page. It's not consistent. But what the believer does is, the brain is a filing system. It's not only a computer, but it also files, right? Like I have filing cabinets in front of me. The brain is a bad clerk at times. It'll put a memory in the wrong place. And sometimes it utterly throws things out. So the person thinks they have a fact, I don't know what that was for.
Oh, that was the heist. Carrie Ann redeemed the heist.
Okay. More sound effects, please. But yeah, that person, the brain is throwing memories out. That person is literally getting rid of part of the truth in order to keep the truth intact. It's quote unquote integrity. Depends on them not knowing things, depends on them not understanding things, depends on them not processing things, depends on them not being fair when new or corrective information is introduced.
And they know that on some level, and because they'll go out of their way to avoid things that are troubling.
We see it. I think Sean McDowell. I didn't know this about Sean McDowell. I'm now willing to say, in my opinion, Sean McDowell's happy to do that. He's happy to throw out perfectly good arguments from other people. I get from him, I don't think I understand your point. I ask a simple question, Sean. If we had all, I posed this on Hot Program a couple of weeks ago. If we had all the technology that we currently have today, and there was no religion, how could we prove there was a God? Would someone think to say there's a God? And if so, how would they prove it? He doesn't understand my question. The answer to my question is fundamentally dangerous to how he makes his living.
Yeah, so it goes back to it's difficult for a man to understand a thing when his salary depends on him not understanding
His salary depends on him not understanding it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, on a certain level, I get it. And on a certain level, it's abhorrent to me. Like, I understand why it's done. Someone I work with has a puppy, and she brings this puppy to work. It's adorable. But this puppy doesn't have a lot of discipline yet. So you can watch the learning process in this dog, just like you would see the learning process in a child. It gets things. Oh, I understand that now. Oh, I shouldn't do that. Okay, I will stop doing that. And you can watch the behavioral changes just as you would in a human being.
Right.
Well, when you're dealing with a believer, the same process, when a person goes from disbelief to belief, the same process is occurring. They're attaching They're drawing lines to connect dots. This is the source of that. This is the source of that. And it's like one of those, when we were all little, they had those connect the dots drawings.
Right.
Maybe you couldn't sit down and draw a cat, but if you connect the dots, you can. And it becomes that way, right? If you can sit down and look around at the universe and under a microscope and kind of try to find a God, but you can't. But if a person draws for you all the dots, and this was a human being who drew those dots, and you start connecting them, oh, no, I see now. I see the infinite creator of the universe who's beyond our own understanding, and we're all small in comparison to that God, and no person invented it, right? At least that's what I derive from connecting all the dots I was supposed to.
Right.
It's real simple. It's real simple what happened. But it's also, I think, for all of us to have our peace, Melody Joy, I'm aiming this right at you. For all of us to have our peace, we have to understand that's what's going on in them. And that's more understandable if it once went on in us. And so, truly, I'm circling back here, we want to preserve the relationship or even improve the relationship with the people in our lives that we care about. And we're trying to let them know, look, I've unplugged myself from the faith. I don't have it anymore. I have my own reasons for not believing, but that's okay. That shouldn't interfere with the love that we have for each other. Most people, I think, will be amenable. And if Melody Joy would like to chime in,
I think the way you
maybe we can have her on.
Yeah. I think the way you put that is great, and I appreciate it because to me, I can start to feel much more disarmed when we can have an adult, heart-to-heart conversation about it. But as soon as I have to give your vacuous worldview this sort of privilege to where I can't treat you like an adult, because I do believe, it's almost like Wayne said, there's no good time or way to have an intervention for the person that needs the intervention. So I think for those of us that are doing the intervention, we have to sort of, in my opinion, accept a certain amount of social risk that comes with it, right? Like when I hit them with this, it's not going to be easy. But I think, to your point, in the path to, it's almost like thinking of it like a marriage, which is what I think of it as. Think about it. It's a good way to put it, because these are some of the relationships we find ourselves in, for lack of better, or more or less for life, often without choice. So then if that's going to be the case, it's like if you're in a marriage, it's not going to be easy to tell your partner that they haven't been picking up behind themselves, and, you've been feeling neglected, and, there's all these other issues. But the relationship can't improve until you have the heart-to-heart about the issues. And even in myself, like, part of it means there might be multiple conversations. Okay, so we've had the conversation about me not believing. We've had the conversation about me not wanting to come home for the holidays. But maybe next year we need to have the conversation about, to be honest, it's not really okay for that to be your response, right? There's a way in which, the same way, you talk about sometimes, if you live long enough, the relationship between parent and child switches. In the same way your parents were charged with teaching you, oh, you responded to this the last time, but the next time, you might think about responding like this instead.
Which response did they give you?
So they gave me you should come another time that's not the holidays, so that we can celebrate the way we want to.
Right.
Yeah,
I think that's okay.
I think it's okay. I think it's the
James.
first step, but I don't think it's the best response, right? So we can talk next year about how to maybe have a better response. Go ahead, James.
I mean, really, they could have said, you know what? You can either, they have lots of options. They can say, you know what, maybe we'll save the Jesus-specific stuff for the last hour, and if you want to leave early, I'll give you a warning. Or maybe we'll we'll show up early, and we'll start early, and we'll do all that stuff first.
Yeah, James, it's all actually so much worse than that. Because the truth is, they just built the house where, ostensibly, even though I don't know if they'll be all there together by then, but they basically are going to live together. They're supposed to live together. Hmm? So you live together. Just do it, do it the day before, day after, another day later. Doesn't matter. Do it any other time. And that's the point. That's where they need to get to. So they get to, okay, well, we told everybody it's not okay to come because you don't want to do Jesus. Yeah, cool. But remember how this stuff about the holidays is supposed to be about family time? Okay, so next time you need to think about how to make it inclusive of the family. Because, again, I'm not the only person in our family who's not religious. Right. I'm not the only person who doesn't want to be around them during these big times because of this reason. Matter of fact, this has been a division and a wound in our family for decades. I am 36 years old. This has been an issue with the non-immediate side of my family my entire life.
I know lots to say about that. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. That's. I want to serve that up. Go ahead.
I mean, there's so much. One, it's like they're so prioritized over their own religious feel indulgence that they're willing to be a bad witness to you and potentially push you further away from salvation and further in towards a hell. And that, to me, isn't a minor issue of priorities. It is a glaring, extreme deviation from the priorities that they imagine and boast of having. And it's just, that's not excusable. So it's in a special category.
It's biblical, and it's turn your back on your family and follow me. But it's anti their values in the sense that they're supposed to be, through their love of family, a witness for their faith, and they're doing the exact opposite. And
Right.
the other thing that I'm trying to point out to y'all is, even though I feel like I hit them with something so heavy and hard this year, and this is what many of y'all may experience, right? It wasn't easy, and I may have to let them respond however they respond to this, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean the work is done. It can be, okay, boom, I hit y'all with that 2-piece this year, and I'm going to let it go. That's round 1. Now we're going to all go back to our corners. I'm going to let y'all handle it the way you said, and I'm going to do it my way. And then the next year, we're going to still build the relationship. Now, when we come into this conversation next year around the holidays, now we're going to talk about taking step 2. Right? Because really, I'm representing a bigger conflict resolution that needs to happen in the family, something that's been festering for decades. And all I'm saying is, it's not going to continue to fester decades. Y'all have to get right, because it's actually about the future of our family. The future of our family cannot continue this Cold War because y'all don't know how to put your toys away. Go ahead, my one black friend.
What's the name of that software you use at work to teach evolution?
Avita Ed.
Avita. Okay. So when you use Avita for anything, you're creating a new experiment within Avita. It has a process that has certain parameters that it needs you to set before it can do its work, right? Okay. Your family is the same way. Each person has a set of parameters that need to be filled in before they can do their process. And for your grandparents, for your mother and stepfather, that's the religion. That's the Christian religion for them. That's the parameters that they have plugged into themselves to help them define what's going on in front of them. You are one of the stimuli that is added into the mix. When you are there and your other non-believing family members are there, it changes the dynamic. And now they must react based on that change. But ultimately, the parameters are set to evolve. That's why the software exists, to model the evolutionary process. So with you in the picture, it's going to change. You are essentially an environmental factor such as isolation or climate change or the removal of a predator from the ecosystem. You know, maybe something got hunted to extinction, and now the one natural enemy you had is gone, so your species can thrive, you know, and branch out, whereas before you really couldn't because you were surrounded by those things that used to eat your kin, your like creatures, if you will. So maybe consider it that way. And Christmas is a religious holiday. It is. And my advice to you earlier, and you can take it or leave it, was just to show up late. Don't be there when they start. Just, again, as James was suggesting there, know what time the prayer is and all that jazz, and avoid it.
Or you could show up early and help them set up a prayer closet and bring a sign with you of the scripture that says always pray in privacy of your closet. Say, I want to support your prayer by helping you make a prayer closet. And you guys can go in there one at a time, or two if you can fit. I will hold the door for you. I will close it for you. I'm an usher. I'm here to support you.
All right. Well, James, I'm going to contest that.
Sure.
Because if they're holding hands at the local Hooters in prayer, you're violating what Jesus is basically asking you to do. But if you're in the privacy of your home. Now, some translations do say inner room and not closet. The King James says closet, but others may say inner room. It's still, that's your home. That's your
Yeah,
home.
well,
And
I
I
mean,
think
sure, but
Pocket Locker is a guest. He's a part of the family and a guest in that home.
sure.
And
So,
I think
so
it's
Sure,
not fair of him to want them to go into the war room. If you remember the movie War Room,
Yeah, the
and
war
have
room.
a prayer
well,
closet.
but this is some of what I'm saying, though, right? So this is some of what I'm saying, because number one, I am deciding to show up late, not Christmas late. The other thing is I'm gonna focus on atheismus. You know, I'm gonna stay home and do what I need to do, because, to be honest, it was imposing a logistical nightmare on me to try to figure out how to do both, and I don't want to. The other thing is I'm grown, and this is something families have to accept. There are consequences for their choices. They're grown. To be honest, they're pathetic. That's my stance. Because again, it's not supposed to be a holiday. And even my family, it ain't supposed to be a religious holiday. It's supposed to be all about family coming together. Now, yes, the holiday is supposed to be the excuse from that, but we all know what families are trying to do. And this is what I'm telling them. There's consequences. I know what they want. My grandparents are getting older. What they want is to recreate the quote-unquote magic we had growing up, where we could put 3 or 4 generations around the table and all sit there and eat and enjoy each other. But as that particular wing has gotten, more extreme and religion has fallen out, this is happening in families all over the country, all over the globe. It's always been this way. People have been showing up late, showing up early, or not showing up at all my whole life. And all we have to do to make that stop is they have to change. It just is what it is. And so what we're allowing them to do is experience the consequences of their action. You're going to have a smaller Christmas for you to think about, because I know what I want is they're going to realize it's Christmas, but they're calling their grandkids. It's Christmas and they're back under one roof, but we're not there the way they expect us to be. Or I'm missing, or this one or that one's critical pieces are missing. Well, the gay one's always been missing, right? It's stuff like this that, I'm tired of. And so they bring this on themselves. The other thing is I'm genuinely losing interest in them. Again, it's a consequence of their action. If I think a girl is cute and you come over to my house and you acting a fool and I genuinely don't want you around anymore, and I'm no longer interested in dating you, it just is what it is. Now, I'm not the type, maybe a lot of people are going to pretend that they still want to date you because they just are too nice of people to hurt your feelings, but I'm too busy to fake it. And I'm too real, I don't fake shit. And I've worked too hard in life to be the type of person that I just don't do that anymore. I spent my whole life somebody giving me a really, really good reason to swallow my pride for somebody else's benefit. And the result of that was I became really, really good at doing it, and then raised to be someone who's completely unwilling to do so. It's like you raise a person to be an amazing salesman, and then what happens? They grow up and they just hate salesmanship. That's who I am. I see performers, I see sales, I'm a performer. I put on concerts. When I see a concert, when I see a show, I literally know the software and the control. I could literally recreate the special effects you see in front of you. I know how the band is working. I know all of that. It's not impressive to me. I don't think it's magical. I think it's just a thing a bunch of people are doing. When people go to church and they have this overwhelming religious experience and it means so much to their life, I go, nope, we did that. My grandfather was up late last night crunching on his sermon. I was in the basement working on that drum solo, and the choir actually fucked this up on Wednesday, so we yelled at them and they got it better. So I'm unimpressed. When you see a politician trying to change the world, I just see a regular person who depends on people like me to go door to door to actually convince people to be motivated enough to get their lazy asses out of the house and vote for the right people on election day. I'm just thoroughly unimpressed by all of this. And so that's a consequence of it. It's a consequence of becoming an academic. I'm a scholar. I'm a researcher. I'm around an academic culture. I'm around people who are growing and learning all the time. I'm very, very impressed by my students. So when I get to people who don't learn, don't take in new information, don't want to grow, I'm just not interested. I don't want to come to your house. I don't want to call you. I don't want to talk. I don't even want to hear from you. Right? It's just. So again, it's like James called it out, and we was talking about this before, James. You said you just have a lot more to gain than you have to lose.
Truth.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm going to tag you in. I think my one black friend stepped away.
All right. So yeah, I agree with all of you. And I wasn't being entirely serious about the closet thing, but like it's a point, right?
Yeah.
So, I almost wonder if somebody should make them a list of people that don't show up for the holidays, and here's why they don't. Like, they count the people that are there, and they either don't think about the people that don't show up, or they make excuses for why they don't show up.
It's excuses, and everyone else makes the excuses. Oh, we were with someone, we were with this, we were with the other side of the family, we went here, we decided to stay home and do our own thing. There's always a good excuse, right? And this is what I mean about this whole thing. It becomes this sexy non sequitur that I'm not into, that I think everybody's just so into this. It's a dance, and I just see it. Same thing with being a dating coach. It's like not impressive to me when somebody does a pickup routine. It's just not. I go, I know exactly what they're doing. Unimpressed. It'd be more impressed if they picked them up and they weren't. Right? That's literally me. Yeah. I'm like, my favorite pickup line is, "Hi, my name's Jay. It's nice to meet you." Because if I can't get through to you with the real me, yeah, of course I could go to the bag of tricks, but I'm going to be so unimpressed with myself because I know I just went to the bag of tricks. Right? So, there's no artistry in that.
Right.
That's how I feel about life, man. These people, it's like they're stuck on infinite easy mode with their infallible God, and then everybody else has a perfectly valid excuse to just not be bothered challenging them.
Right. And so every person that makes an excuse and doesn't tell them the real reason, it makes it to where the person that tells them the real reason seems like the only person taking that stand. Right. And then they think, well, you're just a rare case of somebody that's problematic. They see you as problematic because you're the only one making this case.
And if they could just get you back in line.
Right. So if they realize all the people that don't show up and make excuses every Christmas is because of the same reason, they're just not being honest about it. They don't want to be around all that bullshit either because it's toxic and it's dysfunctional and it's stupid and it's immature and childish, and they ain't about that shit. Now, if they could go light on the Jesus and not go heavy on it, maybe some of them people could tolerate it, but they shouldn't have to. But maybe they would. But very religious family, and now I don't completely agree with my one black friend about the holiday thing where it's a religious holiday. I mean, because the pagans came up with it, and then the Christians, like they do with every damn other thing, stick a flag in it and say,
But almost to the Richard Madsen type of thing, I'd be willing to grant that we're going to talk about the Christians that we know and practice, and we know to them it's a religious holiday, just like they would tell us marriage is a religious tradition and on and on.
Yeah. So, I mean, if what Christmas is to someone specifically religious, then it just is. But it is not, nor do I think we should humor the idea that they've got some kind of dibs on it, right? Because it has become
right back into the thing.
Yeah, it has become secular, and it's,
Matter of fact, James, that's why I was against gay marriage. I used to be against gay marriage when I was a Christian, not because I was against gay people getting married. I would just say the church. I used to literally say this argument, guys. It's gonna sound so stupid, Joe. I used to say marriage is a religious tradition, and so to me, the church has the right to define, what religious services they'll do, right? Yeah. And people should fight for a world in which civil unions are just the same fucking thing, and then everybody in the should be able to have a civil union. So I basically just was like, don't call it marriage and I don't give a shit. But it was still toxic Christianity, right? And it was genuinely my belief. I was like, oh, a civil union, there's nothing wrong with that. People just want to spend the rest of their life. But marriage is something the church instituted. So the church gets to decide who could be married. And if the Bible says this, then why attack what the Bible says and just accept this other thing called the civil union? And we could just make that the same goddamn thing. I was stupid. I just didn't know I was stupid. Go ahead, my one black friend.
You know good and well that in Genesis, God made Eve Adam's wife. Even though there was no ceremony, it was just kind of a deal. And that's okay. So I did hear James Apperson disagree with me while making a good point. A lot of the Christmas celebration, yes, totally ripped off from pagans. However, the sort of thankfulness to Jesus for being born and dying on the cross for the sins of the people, that part, a lot of it's ripped off from paganism too. But there's a piece of it that isn't, and that's what they believe in the most. And that's why they gather together, because typically a lot of things align, right? People are off work, sort of a vacation time at the end of the year.
Matter of fact, the story, right? And I think this kind of gets to what both of you are saying, right? Because James would say this too, right? But so it wasn't originally a Christian thing, right? But the story isn't, oh, there was a tradition and people got together to celebrate it, and it just so happens to coincide with Jesus' birthday.
They don't even do it in the Bible.
Right, the story.
They don't even do it in the Bible, to be fair to James.
They don't do it in the Bible. But now the story is Christmas is the celebration of Jesus's birthday, and some people have secularized it by claiming Christmas is stolen from a pagan tradition, right? But James, they literally, it's like when they say Jesus is the fucking inspiration for all the Western civilization's values and shit, right? It's the same thing, right? They're just like, oh, Jesus is the origin of the reason people even use, and it's just their whole thing. God,
they've invented everything. They've even invented love as a concept, and family, and marriage, and everything. They invented everything that they like. Yeah, like Trump. I never thought about that, but yeah,
it's the best. It's the very best. Nobody was able to do what Christianity has done.
Family, bigly,
right? They were the first, and they done it the best, and everybody else is just copying off of them, and it ain't true, right? But it don't matter that it's not true. Not to them, it don't matter.
Well, it should be. I think they should want more. I think, and I've said this on Hot Program before, I think Christianity sets the bar extremely low, and that helps you get more people involved. Excuse me, imagine a college that didn't have any requirements for a GPA to get in. You just simply had to pay around $45, or let's just make it in ancient Hebrew terms, half a shekel, a third of a shekel. That was a tithe. You just have to pay a third of a shekel, and you are in forever. So, or that's your yearly fee, third of a shekel. That's what it was supposed to be paid to the temple, third of a shekel. Mm-hmm. So, heck, I'd still donate that to a church. I don't even go to one. But I think you have to realize it's that way. The bar is set very low to get more people in, more people believing, and then you could have a bigger organization because of that. And people, if they're not particularly good at something, or maybe they're amazing at something, those people are seated next to each other. Well, that's not true. Those people are seated just a few rows away from each other.
Yeah.
So I want to touch on some things that I've been thinking about that speak to what I want to call the urgency of the moment. And James Apperson, you've been speaking to what do you call it? The Great Awakening.
Right.
And it's funny because I've been hearing some of there's like this anti-reality Trumpist QAnon roadshow. It's like a revival tent writ large that's going around right now, pushing right-wing conspiracies. And they're calling themselves like the Great Revival or something. Like they're giving themselves a similar title. And we started to have this conversation the other day, and just claiming to be the great friends that we are, because I need to feel good about myself, James. So, you know, we get sidetracked. We have all these threads to pull on. But I started to compare sort of the Darwinian revolution to the Copernican revolution, right? And I hope you guys will see the power and scariness of what I'm about to say. By Darwinian revolution, we mean, you know, the origin of species. We figured out that we're evolved and we're primates. Let's call it that. The Copernican revolution is we figured out that the Earth is not the center of the universe, and in fact, the Earth goes around the sun. Now, what Stephen Jay Gould would say is that the Copernican revolution is small potatoes compared to the Darwinian revolution. The Copernican revolution is about real estate. It's about redrawing the map and realizing we put ourselves in the wrong place in the neighborhood. The Darwinian revolution, though, it's about our essence. It's about who we are. Where do we come from? Where are we going? What does all this mean or not mean? And that revolution's much bigger. And so there's a couple things that are consequences of that. Number one is that for it to ever be accepted, when people say that Darwinian evolution is the scientific consensus, don't take that lightly, because it means something that it does not mean in the case of scientific consensus in any other context, right? In any other context, the scientific consensus just requires some guys did an experiment, they found a principle, a couple other experiments were done, it pretty much holds up. Mostly everybody that's read about it pretty much said, it's probably the way it goes, right?
Yeah.
For this Darwinian evolution thing to become the scientific consensus, it had to be the most well-evidenced theory in the history of science ever. Why?
Right.
Because it was about our essence. No way could this become the scientific consensus unless there was so much evidence, because people were never going to give up the special creation of humans. Even our whole taxonomy, why are we called primates? It means first family, right? It was given primacy to the organisms that were most like us. Why did we call ourselves the great apes and the hominins and all this? We kept making up new classifications so that we didn't have to be grouped with the other animals. And this final gobsmack of humility that when we, and first off, it was going to happen. All Darwin did was put it down nicely and concisely, but like we talked about, Wallace was cooking it up, and this was going to happen anyway, and if we got rid of it, it happened again. Go ahead, my one black friend.
I'll tell you why your point's really important. It's super important. So, if what Darwin helped evidence was mankind's rather humble origins, it means God can't throw you away. That's true. Because to a certain number of individuals of the Christian faith, they believe in a hell, eternal conscious torment. Essentially, God, who said he sent his kid to die for you, is now going to make you suffer forever just because you didn't happen to believe that fact, if it is a fact. It also means that since you can't be thrown away, you know you're going to go. When you go, you're going away forever. When you die, it's forever. There's nothing left behind other than maybe some genes that you passed on to another person, and those might be around in 1,000 years. But in 1,000 years, it's unlikely anyone will remember your name or know how you live.
Everybody.
Or anything.
Matter of fact, it's so incredible to do this
I
simple
won't say
exercise.
everyone because I know of authors that lived long ago. I know of people like Akhenaten.
That's all I was going to say. Yeah, is that it's so rare. But you
Alexander,
can, yeah, exactly.
But look, that's very few, right? And we'll find like Annie, the Egyptian scribe. We find his
Trump will outlive all of us.
Maybe, excuse me.
No, I mean, but come
there are
on, he's
people who
the
are-
president, right? So if there's
used
just
to
so
be.
much, or he was, right? So, but you know what I mean? Like, there's so much more written about people like that. They're of such a different scale that if most of us
But
are
you
not
can-
remembered beyond our families and our friends, you are that much more likely to be remembered hundreds or thousands of years from now if you are, of
a
that.
scoundrel.
Well, let's just say of a certain status, a celebrity, right? Something that there's going to be lots of external, and to your point, there's just very few
In
of us.
400
right?
years, are they going to remember Brad Pitt?
No, that's what I'm
Who's
saying.
arguably more
maybe.
famous than Trump.
Right. But who knows? Who knows?
400 years.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is it definitely shifts these probabilities, right? But for all of us, you get out a certain distance, and it's very unlikely that any of us are remembered.
I'll agree.
Yeah, for sure.
Although AR's pug dog shaking,
Legendary.
That
Just
could be around in
fixed in
200
your memory
years.
forever.
In 400 years.
There's going to be a meme
that
on
could be around a while.
There's going to be a meme on a spaceship, sending us
Yes,
as
they're
we go to
traveling the
colonate Mars. Yeah. But all right, but here's kind of where I was
There's a
going.
picture of me chewing.
Here's kind of where I was going with that, and you guys will see what I find promising and scary about all this. So, no one would accept the Darwinian revolution unless, let's just say, the evidence was so overwhelming, right, James? And again, it was inevitable, right? It's not subjective, or it didn't rely on anybody. It was just going to happen. But this is how long it takes. Well, we still have this scary, alarming proportion of our society that doesn't accept it. So part of what I wanted to talk about, James, is something I've started to talk to my colleagues about. I hate when people talk about the Darwinian revolution because they always refer to it as something that happened in the past rather than something we're still in the middle of.
Yeah, we're still learning.
Right, we're still learning, and it hasn't been taken into the common consciousness. To be honest, it hasn't even been taken into the consciousness as much as the Copernican revolution, or as much as, say, around Earth or gravity. Right, it has not been accepted to those levels, although it should be. There's far more evidence for it. There's far more investigation of it. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but what does that lead me to? Not only is the Darwinian revolution not over, not only are we still in the middle of it, we've actually got to put more effort into this thing than ever before because the consequences, right? If we had a proper Darwinian viewpoint of life, we would not be having this conversation about, let's say, any issues. We wouldn't be having this conversation about vaccines and viruses. We wouldn't be having this conversation about critical race theory because we'd understand the African origins of our entire species. We wouldn't be having these conversations about LGBT because we know that they play an important role in the social evolution of our species, right? There are consequences, y'all. We wouldn't be having this conversation about and climate change. Go ahead, my one black friend.
I think there's something that needs to be understood in our modern times with media, the way it works. It is well understood, the profit motive, more eyeballs, more clicks, more views, what have you. If you keep a people angry and frustrated, these are powerful emotions. You can get them back. I heard a quote today that astonished me. It was from Lyndon B. Johnson, so the person saying it said, I don't know how accurate the quote is, but he was quoted as saying, if you can get the lowest white man to believe he's better than the best black man, you won't have to turn out his pockets. He'll turn them out for you, meaning he'll support you financially if you can get him to believe that.
At all cost. And we see that. And I even feel that way.
We see that.
Yeah, I even feel that way.
But let me just say, it's not merely on the issue of someone's ethnicity. It goes beyond that. We see Democrats and Republicans in the political sphere vilifying each other when there's actually very little difference between the two. The difference is tiny. And a person can, I look at Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz, they're probably Democratic equivalents of those two, that will lie and cheat and obfuscate, and they don't care. They don't care what people really think, because enough people support them that they can stay in power. And I do see the day coming in the near future where Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene have their own talk show, because they chose, I'll take the path of having millions of dollars from Fox News or somebody, as opposed to just staying in office. They'll take much less flack. They'll throw all the stones they want to, be more influential, more powerful, and richer.
I would say beyond that, it's becoming the playbook. I'll give you an example. There's a playbook that everybody knows in, say, politics. A lot of what somebody like even a Cory Booker is doing. Where do you go with this, right? Well, one, Senate is a great place to ambition to, right? Because you can be there forever, right? So that was, my dad called that path maybe 20 years ago, more probably. He literally said, Cory's going to serve 2 terms as the mayor of Newark. We're going to be looking to fill Lautenberg's seat. We knew Lautenberg was going to be older and retiring or near death, and that at that point, Cory Booker was likely to be handed the seat, and then there'd be a general election. He'd win the special election and then just have to defend the seat from there. It's exactly what happened, right? Because my dad saw this is the career playbook, right? You use this job to get that job, and then that gig to get that gig. Where else could he go from here? He could go vice president or president, right? He could go to the Supreme Court, and here's the one people always forget. He could become even more powerful, became what? The governor of the state of New Jersey, right? So those are really the only other options, right? And it's the same thing with, what athletes do, right? You're a good athlete, okay, you go to college, that's great. You go to the pros, that's even better. Where do you go from there? You become a coach, or if you're really great interview, you become a commentator, right? Maybe if you're good with your business, you can get into investment or agency type of stuff, or branch off into like fashion and entertainment. There's certain paths that people are carving out as a safe way to go. And this Trumplican universe is doing its own thing, right? They're all figuring out that they can all spin off this and do what? They can write books. They can get really profitable social media platforms. They can build brands, right? When we just reviewed this Trumplican revival tour, they're all selling something. They said every single speaker is selling you something, every single one of them, right? And then they know they can go into the right-wing media circus. So Fox News, so what I'm getting at is Fox News for a lot of these people is the goal. And what they're doing is they're making themselves relevant in the Trumplican universe so that they're more attractive as a future Fox News personality. Because they see that now. And to be honest with you, and you need to be honest with yourselves about this, that's more profitable to them. I'm going to be honest with you. Nobody wants to be in this government shit forever. Everybody wants to cash in because money is a limited resource that's really incredibly valuable for anybody that can get it, right? So what are your senators and politicians doing? Most of them are setting themselves up to the point that, one, they have ancillary funds that they're far enough away from and they put themselves, and so they don't have any control or conflicts, and they're building basically, you could think of as personal trust funds, right? But they're in escrow. They can't touch them. They can't make decisions about them. They're in the hands of their money managers, and that's that, right? But what they're hoping is that they that creates a landing pad for them when they're done with politics. And then also, because they're a politician, they're well connected enough that they get big payoffs. And what are those big payoffs? You retire, you get put on a bunch of boards, right? My one black friend, I just say, hey, oh, you were the great senator from the state of Montana. Oh, my one black friend, we would love to have you on the board for this company and this particular initiative and this coalition and that thing. And all of these people are just tossing 6-7-figure checks at you, right? Because they need you to leverage and politic and everything on their behalf. And what is that? That's your, and then that's your payoff, right? That's what you then go off and retire to, right? And so it's the same thing. Nobody can stay in government because it's underpaying. If you're the type of person that you can achieve a high level in government, no, almost by definition, if you're a person that can achieve that high of a position
I'm laughing because
it's true. Yeah, you're almost by definition underpaid. Yeah, you are underpaid if you get to that high of a level. So that's not your cash out, right? Your cash out isn't being Trump's press secretary, right? That's you're talking $250,000 at most for a position like that, right? Fox News, you're talking potentially millions of years. You're talking multi-million-dollar book deals, social media stuff, cushy retirement, right? Like you say, no work, spewing whatever you want to spew, no pushback from the other side. You don't have to actually work all day.
Say what they tell you.
Yeah, you only got to work a couple hours a day, right? So that's nobody's angling for that freaking bureaucratic position, right? They're using that to angle for their golden parachute. I'm gonna turn it over to you guys.
I've got to go.
Oh yeah. It's a great time to wrap. I skipped my meeting, but me and James will hold it down for a minute. Appreciate you, my one black friend.
Thank you all.
Always great to see you.
Yeah. We'll see you next time. And
I'll stay if Melody Joy wants to ask a question or chime in.
Yeah. Melody Joy, do you want to say anything? I don't know if she's.
I'm still not savvy enough about how this whole.
Yeah, sometimes she's not on the mic and gather. Sometimes she's just
gather thing works.
Sometimes they're just lurking, but they're not away from. They're not on their mic. So we'll just give her.
That is an open invitation to her. I'd love to know how.
Yeah. She can always come back. We're here every week. She said sorry, not right now, but I will soon. All right, awesome. She put that in chat.
Perfect.
All right, cool. Thanks, my one black friend. We'll have a good week.
Welcome.
And
thank you all. Thanks for stepping in, James.
Yeah, peace. See
you soon. Bye, everyone.
Later.
Bye.